Of the Ultimate Detox Challenge. You guys sucked me out of the mountains of Colorado. You even made me shave my beard to come back to Miami for 3 days to host this challenge. Guys, this challenge, of all the challenges that I've done, I know a lot of you guys logging in from all over the world. I see people from Auckland, New Zealand. I see people from London. I see people from Paris. I see people from Austin, Texas, from all over the world. Thank you guys for trusting me over the next 3 days to guide you through this detox challenge. The team and I literally spent months building the Ultimate Detox Guide, which all of you should have gotten a free copy of. And we spent months really working on this challenge to get it into bite-sized formats so that we could really begin this detox journey together. I was actually going to start the challenge with my big fluffy Colorado beard, but my daughter threatened to disown me. She said that half of you guys would have logged off with my big white bushy beard. So I shaved it and I'm ready to get started. I'm your host, human biologist Gary Brecka. And if there's one thing that I've learned from analyzing the blood work of literally tens of thousands of people, my wife and I co-founded a functional medicine clinic about 10 years ago in a little strip mall in Naples, Florida. It blew up to be one of the largest functional medicine clinics in the world. And we learned a lot from doing COVID testing and treating patients with COVID. We learned a lot from blood work, biomarkers, and genetic testing, supplementation, even using peptides to help people on their wellness journey. But there was always a segment of these several 100,000 patients that had come through our clinic system that had relatively normal labs, but they still reported symptoms of weight gain, water retention, brain fog, really poor sleep, poor focus and concentration, strange pain patterns, fatigue, short-term memory issues. And we really had a difficult time putting a finger on it. And what I've learned from analyzing the blood work of tens of thousands of these people is that people don't have a shortage of motivation to get better. They have a surplus of information. They just get paralysis of analysis. And you start putting detox into the Google search engine and watch what happens. You'll find every juice cleanse, every colon cleanse, every short-term product or service that's meant to really get toxins out of your body. A lot of these make you a lot more sick than you started. So you've probably been told, if you're one of those people that falls into that category, that everything looks normal on your labs. But deep down, you kind of know that something's not right. Your energy's off, your digestion is a mess, you've got brain fog, you've got chronic pain, you have sleep issues you can't put a finger on, maybe even anxiety or depression. And yes, these things that you cannot explain, and very often, in fact, the majority of time, they are linked to toxicity in the body. There's some really interesting studies that I've been publicizing lately on autoimmune disease, Crohn's, Hashimoto's, multiple sclerosis, actually looking at parasitic and pathogenic invaders as the genesis of a lot of these diseases. So over the next 3 days, you're going to find that I tend to believe a lot more in what God gave us and less in what man made us. And so a lot of what we're going to talk about over the next 3 days is about really getting back to the basics. How do we pull these things out of our tissues and get them into the organ systems that can detoxify them? And then how do we get them from those organ systems out of the body? So this challenge is not about a trendy detox. You'll notice I don't have a detox package or a juice cleanse or a liver cleanse or colon cleanse. It's not about trendy detoxes. It's not about green juice. It's not about starving yourself. It's about identifying the underlying stressors in your biology. How do we know if it's mold, mycotoxins, heavy metals, parasites, or viruses, and then helping your body finally eliminate them? Every single one of you has detoxification pathways and a genetic predisposition to have healthy pathways or broken pathways. And you can fall kind of into three categories where your methylation is working properly and you can actually get rid of heavy metals, you can clear viruses, you can clear things like the spike protein. Maybe you were vaccinated and have no side effects at all, and maybe you were vaccinated and you've had long COVID symptoms ever since. Why would two people get the same inoculation and have completely different outcomes? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what happens in the body when we have to detox anything from spike protein to parasites to heavy metals to mold spores to mycotoxins and even to viruses. So for the next 3 days, I'm going to walk you step by step through what might be making you sick, how to test for it, and what to do every single day to get better naturally predictably, and then permanently. So if you're watching this on YouTube, welcome guys on YouTube. There's thousands of you on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us. You're going to get incredible value here, but I want you to know about something up front that's very special that we created for people who actually want to grow deeper on this journey. It's our VIP members, where you're going to get access to exclusive content. We're going to do 90-minute Q&As with me in a live format every day for the next 3 days. You'll get those every single month. You'll get private podcasts. You'll get a complete ultimate detox guide, which is a 50-page blueprint with very specific protocols and supplement recommendations, which unfortunately I cannot talk about live on this Zoom. But don't worry, even if you're not a VIP, you're going to get a lot out of this detox challenge. The intention is to not be upselling you products and services. I just want you to know about the VIP group, because that is where I pour myself into in a very open, transparent dialogue where we can actually meet sort of, one-on-one in a group setting and really take a deep dive into your questions. Plus next week, all the VIPs are getting a 12-week metal cleanse guide and an 8-week mold guide that I spent several months writing. So that's going to be free to the VIPs. I also built a course. It's a 10-month course, which I was going to just go out and sell to the public for a couple of $1,000s. I'm giving it away to the VIPs. It's on becoming the ultimate human version of yourself. It's not about detox. It's about sleep routines, morning routines, whole food dieting, travel tips, all of the things that we need to become the ultimate human version of yourself. And the most exciting thing is I'm doing a lot of giveaways in there. So I'm giving away VIP boxes. They're worth over $500 every single day. I'm giving 3 away today. So 3 lucky members will win packages. It includes everything: BodyHealth's metal and chemical cleanse, raw glutathione, Baja Gold sea salt grinders, all the flavors of H2 tablets, and premium magnesium products I'm going to give to you from BioOptimizers. So the link to upgrade to VIP is in the description. But whether or not you're a VIP, what we're covering today could change everything for you. So let's dive in. Let's just start with the basics, guys. When we talk about detox, what are we really talking about? Most people think that we're talking about eliminating things from the body. But what we really want to do is actually take a step back. And we want to talk about how do we take metals, mold spores, mycotoxins, parasites potentially, even viruses, microplastics that are circulating not just around in our bloodstream, but are embedded in our tissues. If you were to look up autoimmune disease as a category, I know so many of you either have or know somebody who suffers from an autoimmune disease. And let's just pick a couple of them: Crohn's disease, or Hashimoto's, where your immune system is attacking your thyroid, or Sjogren's, where it's attacking the lacrimal gland in your eye, or multiple sclerosis, where the immune system is actually attacking the myelin sheath of your nerves. And what you're told is that you woke up one day and your immune system went haywire, and it just turned on your body and it began to attack itself. If it attacks the colon, you're told you have Crohn's disease. If it attacks the thyroid, you're told you have Hashimoto's. If it attacks the lacrimal gland in your eyes, you're told you have Sjogren's. Unfortunately, if it attacks the myelin sheath, you're told that you have multiple sclerosis. And if you took it a step further and asked your physician, well, what caused my immune system to just suddenly turn on healthy tissue? You'll see that the category of autoimmune disease, 85% of all autoimmune disease is idiopathic. It's of unknown origin. So they say it just happened spontaneously, or your immune system just got run down and now you have this condition. But don't worry, you have a permanent lifetime subscription to medication. You're going to be on methotrexate. You're going to be on immunosuppressants. You're going to be on thyroid supplements or thyroid medication, levothyroxine, Synthroid. You're going to be on Armour Thyroid for the rest of your life, and we'll just manage these symptoms. But if 85% of the time we don't know what's causing it, what if we took the position that the immune system is acting properly? We just need to find out why it's there. And what we discovered over the last 10 years, treating thousands and thousands of patients, are that people are suffering from these hidden toxins, and they're not showing up on normal labs. They're not showing up on your genetic test. You know that you don't feel well. You know that you feel off, and your doctor is telling you that your labs all look normal. So here's the problem. When we talk about detoxification, I'm going to break it down really simply. What we want to do, can I go to the whiteboard? Okay. And first of all, guys, just please remember that I'm a scientist and not an artist. So don't judge the detox challenge by my artwork, judge it by the information. So when we look in human beings, okay, and this is, I'm not saying that any of you guys look like this, but let's just get to the basics here. Sort of looks like an alien. All right, there you are. So when we talk about detoxification, most of the time we're thinking about how do we get toxins out of the body. But the first thing we have to do is get toxins from the tissues, from the bone, from the fat, from the muscles, from the soft tissues. We have to get toxicity from our organ systems into a place, into a trash can, so we can bag it and get rid of it. So where do the toxins go before they're eliminated from the body? And we need to talk about these systems. We have the lungs, we have the liver, we have the lymph, we have the kidneys, we have the colon, and we actually have the skin. Okay, so before we ever talk about detox, you know, a lot of times you'll see online that you can get a liver detox, right? Or you can get a kidney detox, or you can get a colon cleanse. And the challenge with targeting just one of these organs and trying to use that single organ to detoxify your body is that very often what these organ systems do, the liver, for example, is they detoxify in two phases. So if I were to just take the liver for a moment, we have something called phase 1, and we have something called phase 2 detox. The difference between a cleanse and a detox is dramatic, because what happens in your liver, and this happens in other organ systems in the body, is that in the first phase of detoxification, toxins will come into the liver. These could be mold, they could be mycotoxins, they could be inflammatory cytokines, they could be all kinds of metals, they can be microplastics, they could be allergens, all kinds of toxins from the bloodstream that are filtering through the liver. And during phase 1, these toxins are converted into the liver into compounds that the liver prepares to get rid of. Now, if you know anything about human physiology, the liver will discharge into the gallbladder, something called bile. Bile will then be secreted into the colon, into the small intestine, an area called the duodenum. It will enter the stool and it will exit your body. So phase 1 is the capture of toxins. Phase 2 is the conversion of toxins to eliminate them. I cannot overemphasize how critical this is. When you do a detox, typical detox, juice cleanses, liver detox, what it causes is it causes the phase 1 detoxification system in the liver to discharge everything back into the blood, back into the colon, back into your bloodstream. And very often you get really sick. So if you're one of those people that's actually tried a liver detox or tried one of those short-term 3-day, 4-day detoxes, and you got really sick, and they try to convince you that that was a good thing because those were the toxins leaving your body, that's not true. Those are the toxins going back into your body. And so what we're going to do first is we're going to talk about how do we prepare these systems, the lungs, the liver, the lymph nodes, the kidneys, the colon, and the skin. How do we prepare them to capture these toxins? And then once we prepare them to capture them, how do we prepare them to get rid of them? This is why certain supplementation like binders and things are going to work. We're going to use very traditional methods like foods that are low in mold and mycotoxins. We're going to use things like sauna. We're going to improve the digestion. We're going to get your bowels going. Normally, nobody wants to talk about pooping. We're going to talk a lot about pooping on this 3-day detox. In fact, in a few minutes, I'm bringing one of the top gastroenterologists in the world, Dr. Buskowitz. They call him Dr. B. If you're interested in colon and your microbiome and the health of your colon and microbiome, please watch the podcast that I did with him. He's going to come on for 45 minutes and talk first about how do we get our bowels properly moving. So the important thing that I want to talk about are not just are there toxins in our body, because every single one of us has toxins in our body. How do we get those toxins into organ systems like the liver? How do we improve phase 1 detox, which is the capture of those toxins? And then how do we improve phase 2 detox, which is the elimination of those toxins? And there are certain supplements and certain things that we do at each stage to improve how these systems operate. For example, phase 1 liver detox requires substantial amounts of minerals. And so many of us are mineral deficient. You don't have to use the mineral salts that I'm going to recommend, something like a Baja Gold, but you need to be taking a mineral salt every day, first thing in the morning, hydrating and mineralizing the body. We also need to talk about the process of methylation. What are the different compounds that the liver uses during phase 1 detox? Well, it uses a voluminous amount of the complex of B vitamins, pyridoxine, riboflavin, thiamine, niacin, and pantothenic acid. It's incredible how many people have toxic buildup in their body because they are mineral, vitamin, amino, or amino acid, or nutrient deficient. So one of the first things we're going to talk about is what specific vitamins, minerals, and amino acids help phase 1 detoxification. Because what your liver is going to do is it's going to capture toxins, it's going to convert them into something called inert carbons, and it's going to discharge those through the gallbladder into the stool. Similar thing happens in your kidneys. Your kidneys are the great methylator of the body. If you've ever known or ever had the misfortune of having a kidney stone, very often people think those kidney stones are calcium. They're not calcium, they're minerals. So we're going to talk about each one of these organ systems and how we prepare it for detoxification. And I want to start with the big one, which is the colon. And so I want you guys to welcome Dr. Will B. He's joining the Zoom. He's a gastroenterologist. He has left his profession as a GI physician and is on a mission to help people poop better. So for those of you that have sluggish bowels or irritable bowels or anything going on in your digestive tract, this is the part of the detox challenge you're going to want to pay attention to. So now I'm going to bring him on. It's somebody I deeply respect. We call him Dr. Will B because his last name is Buskowitz. If you've ever been dismissed by a doctor or told that it's all in your head or prescribed a pill without any answers, Will is the kind of doctor that we really need more of. He's going to walk us through some of the most overlooked causes of the chronic symptoms you're suffering from, how detox pathways get blocked, and how to finally uncover the truth behind some of these health issues. So guys, please welcome Dr. Will B. Let's get fired up. There he is. All right, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you too.
All right, I'm pumped. It's good to see you.
It's great to see you too. Dr. B, thank you for coming on and sharing, all your wisdom. I mean, we know that colon health is optimal health, and I wanted to pick a place to start on the detox challenge. So obviously we're starting with the importance of having a healthy digestive system, which really starts at the back of our throat and goes all the way out the back door. So I want to get right to the point. Lots of VIPs and folks that are on the challenge prior to the challenge submitted questions. So I have a few questions for you before we actually take questions from our live YouTube audience. Guys, if you're watching on YouTube, please start submitting your questions for Dr. B, and my team's going to collect those, and we'll take the most commonly asked questions, and I'll make sure that we feed them to Dr. Will B during this live simulcast. So first of all, I know that you are a huge proponent of pooping. You call it the glorious epic dumps. But why is going to the bathroom so regularly one of the most powerful detox strategies we have, and how exactly does this support our body's capacity to detoxify?
Gary, you just showed us on the whiteboard, right? Which is that if we take a step back and we think about how do we eliminate toxins from our body, there's only so many routes that this can go. We can poop it out, we can pee it out, we can sweat it out, we could breathe it out, although that's not a really big part of this. And in theory, you could spit a lot, you could cry a lot. But like really among those choices, the science overtly, clearly says it's pooping that is the dominant factor in terms of how we rid our body of these toxins. And it's for
Hmm.
the reason that you just pointed out, which is that if I were to turn to this wonderful audience and say, like, what is the dominant detox organ in the body? I'm quite sure you would say the liver. And that would be true.
Yes,
And then the
very much.
liver
That's
is
why we
going
started
to,
there.
exactly. And then the liver is going to excrete it through the bile. And
Hmm.
for it to leave your body, it goes through a bowel movement. And research shows that, for example, glyphosate,
Hmm.
80% excreted in our stool.
Wow.
Microplastics, 90% excreted in our stool. Heavy
Wow.
metals, dominantly excreted in our stool. So these are the topics that you're going to be talking about during these 3 days. And what I'm saying to you is everyone needs to perk up right now because epic glorious dumps is a way in which you detoxify. And by the way, they're also satisfying and great for you.
I love epic glorious stunts. Um, so, what are your top practical tips for someone who struggles with constipation or irregular bowel movements? And how do these processes kind of help the body detoxify naturally?
Okay, so uh, I would imagine that people who know me are expecting me to first say fiber. So I'm going to make this harder for me. I'm going to talk about other stuff,
Okay.
which is hydration. Hydration activates your gut. Hydration stimulates bowel movements. Hydration activates your kidneys. You urinate. So when I say 80% of glyphosate comes out in your stool, the other 20% is in your urine. And
Wow.
if you hydrate, you're activating both. All right. Number two, exercise. Exercise is obviously good for our cardiovascular fitness, for muscle mass. Gary, you're looking pretty fit and healthy these days. But it's also good for our gut. It helps our gut microbes. They love exercise. It
Yeah.
stimulates gut motility. Motility is the way in which we allow ourselves to have a good, healthy bowel movement. And so
Hmm.
when we exercise, we're actually supporting these systems. And then the third thing I'm going to say is magnesium.
Mm.
So I my experience
That
and
was, not to interrupt you, but that was the single greatest deficiency across all of the metabolic testing and cellular nutrient assays that we did over 10 years. Was first was magnesium and the second was vitamin D3. Just as an aside, about
yeah.
85% of even our healthiest patients were clinically deficient in magnesium.
Okay, so just to corroborate that, so that's you speaking on population data, and I'm
Hmm.
speaking from my experience with tens of thousands of patients in a clinic, which is that there are so many people out there who don't realize that they're deficient in magnesium. You might be eating a healthy diet, and we have depleted our soil to the point that we keep sucking up, and we're monocropping. We keep sucking up the nutrients, and now we can't get enough magnesium even with a healthy diet. And deficiency is everywhere.
Yeah.
Magnesium as a supplement, it stimulates bowel motility. It's actually my favorite way to address constipation is with magnesium supplements. But it
Okay.
also is active in terms of detoxification pathways in the liver. Your liver actually requires this for enzymatic activity during those phase one detox pathways that you're talking about, Gary.
Hmm. So, what are like the nutritional lifestyle factors that people tend to overlook that directly enhance detoxification or
All right,
can
so
directly improve like healthy bowels? Because I know there's a lot of people on this Zoom right now that are not going regularly. You know, I always say if you wake up and you haven't had a bowel movement in the first 45 minutes of the day, you're already starting behind. If you haven't had a second one by the end of the day, that's a sign that your colon is already sluggish. And so before we even talk about detoxification, we have to talk about healthy liver, healthy lymph, healthy kidneys, you know, healthy respiratory, you know, patterns. So what are what are people overlooking that directly is impacting their capacity to detox, and what can they do to get their bowels moving if it's not something that they're doing right now?
yeah. So so first of all, what you said about the waking up and having a bowel movement within 45 minutes, that's a marker of circadian disruption if that's not happening.
Hmm.
Your bowels should be on a circadian rhythm. And if they're not, it's proof that your circadian is out of alignment. And we'll talk more about that.
Okay.
Some of the things. So, first of all, if we support our gut microbiome,
Hmm.
we are activating the gut microbiome detoxification pathways, which if I were to go back to your whiteboard, I would add that to the whiteboard. Your
Mm.
microbiome actually is coming into contact with many of the things. For example, the drugs, the pharmaceuticals that you take are modified by your microbes. Why do some people get an amazing effect from drugs and some people get a horrible adverse effect? Part
Hmm.
of this is the way in which our body, our microbiome interacts with them. So we want to support these microbes. And the ways that we can do that are with fiber. 95% of America is deficient in this. With
95.
healthy,
Wow.
yeah, 95%. With healthy fat. So like I'm looking to have people elevate, like get rid of the junk fats and improve it with high quality fats
Hmm.
with fermented food. And it's no coincidence that you consume fermented food. Like some people, I'm sure there's people who are here today on the call, they'll acknowledge this, that they have yogurt for breakfast and they have a great bowel movement. That's not a
Hmm.
coincidence.
Right. Yeah, that's why I incorporate sauerkraut, kimchi, pickled and fermented vegetables all of the time into my diet. In fact, I rarely ever eat meat without also eating fermented veggies. And fermented vegetables like sauerkraut or kimchi, these are really inexpensive to get in the supermarket. They're widely available, and they have the soluble and the insoluble fiber. And remember, the insoluble fiber sort of creates that bulk that moves through your intestinal tract and kind of brushes it out. But the soluble fiber becomes something called free fatty acids. And so converting that soluble fiber into free fatty acids is excellent for your brain. It's excellent for your immune system. It's excellent for your organ function. So these are simple things, fermented veggies. I know a lot of you don't like the taste of sauerkraut. Maybe you don't like the taste of kimchi. These are super inexpensive to get at your grocery store, your health food store, and you can incorporate them with other dishes. When you mix them with meats or fish or chicken, the blended taste makes it a lot more palpable. Same way I feel about organ meats. I have a hard time just eating liver. Paul Saladino comes and stays with me all the time, and he makes me like take slices of raw liver and eat them. And I get the health benefits of that, but it's like literally swallowing your tailpipe. It has such a metallic taste. So I blend those organ meats in with regular ground beef in it, and they taste amazing. But I didn't mean to
Well,
cut you off.
yeah, oh, no, no, not at all. That's a great point. And to that point, I mean, many people I'm sure would acknowledge that when they pair wine with their food, it tastes better and
Mm.
it brings out aspects of it. It also helps to cut the fat so
Mm-hmm.
that you cut the richness. And
Mm-hmm.
that's because it's a fermented food. The grape juice wouldn't do that.
Mm. I didn't know that.
So, and fermentation is transformation. So you mentioned that this can lead to short chain fatty acids, the butyrate, acetate, and propionate. But it's also that through fermentation, we are creating live microbes. We are changing the fiber.
Mm-hmm.
We create what are called exopolysaccharides. We're changing actually the peptides and the protein. We're actually making it more bioavailable, and we're reducing the toxic burden. So actually, fermentation in itself is actually proof of the capacity for microbes to detox. Because if you take food that has, for example, a high glyphosate burden, and you ferment it, you will actually drop the glyphosate burden. That's one of the
Wow.
interesting things.
That's amazing. So along these lines, I mean, you always talk about consistency promoting detoxification. So how does consistency do that? And I know you're also a big proponent, it sounds like for different reasons, but a big proponent of personal strategies like incorporating optimal morning sun exposure and even in darkness into your daily life, because you and I both believe in the circadian cycle. What's really interesting is I'll show you guys this. I track all my sleep every night on Whoop. And so last night, when I look at my sleep score, I got an 80. I don't know if you can see that. I got an 87%, which is actually not, sorry, not good for me. I got an 87% sleep score, but when I dug into it, my recovery was still 97%. But when I dug into why I only got an 87% sleep score, it was because Whoop gives me very high marks for being consistent. So I just came from Colorado and I go to bed at 10 o'clock like clockwork every night. So what I thought I would do when I got here was go to bed at midnight to keep that time consistent because it's 10 p.m. in Colorado. And then Whoop whacked me for that 2 hours and said, hey, you're not being consistent with your sleep schedule. But what I will tell you is, of all of the things I do to improve my sleep score, the one that works the most is by going to bed at the same time every single night. And so in Colorado, I'm getting 98, 99, 100% sleep scores. And then I came here, slept the same amount of time, got the same amount of deep and REM, but because my timing was off, it dropped that score. So, part of this evolution of understanding how we get toxins out of the body is actually putting the body in a place where it actually wants to eliminate toxins, meaning where it actually has the time and resources to commit to eliminating a toxic burden. You will not eliminate waste, repair, detoxify, or regenerate if you are nutrient deficient, if you are dehydrated, if your waste elimination pathways are not open, you're not getting consistent sleep, and you're not moving. There's no mechanism for us to get around any of those things. So I'd love it if you talk about your personal strategies or tips for incorporating optimal sunlight, what your morning routine looks like.
Yeah, definitely. So we're obviously talking about circadian rhythm, and the body is
Mm-hmm.
designed with its own natural rhythm. Every single one of the organs that you just mentioned, the
Mm-hmm.
liver, the kidneys, the lungs, has its own clock, it has its own internal clock. And our job is to teach the body to stay aligned and synchronized. And the way that we do this is with consistency. And this is a completely free idea
Mm-hmm.
that, like, literally, if you changed nothing in your life other than did everything at the same time every single day, you would be way more healthy.
Yeah,
Just that.
I agree with that.
So in terms of my routines, in the morning, I like to wake up and I get my morning sunlight. And part of this is that morning sunlight, it actually allows my body to anchor the morning circadian rhythm. It
Mm-hmm.
activates my gut. It turns on my brain. It floods my body with serotonin. Serotonin is the happy hormone, but serotonin is also key for motility. So if you want to have that good morning bowel movement, you need this serotonin to help to get your motility into a rhythm. So I like to get my morning sunlight, hydrate, have a cup of coffee, and I like to do a walk outside. And that sort of light
Amazing.
exercise contributes to all these things. So like to me, it's like multitasking. Like I'll usually wake up, hydrate, take my morning supplements, and then I go outside for a walk, usually with one of my kids in a stroller, and I'll wear a ruck vest. I'll have my cup of coffee,
Awesome.
no glasses, getting my sunlight exposure, and I try to spend about 20 or 30 minutes outside doing that.
That's awesome. All right, I'm going to move over to some YouTube questions. So the team's been consolidating these. Kenny R says, "What if you no longer have a gallbladder?"
Yeah, so if you no longer have a gallbladder, the detoxification pathway is the same. So I want to comment on this. Your liver will still produce bile. The difference is that the gallbladder is basically like, think of it like the old-fashioned deerskin canteen. Like it's like a sack, and it holds the bile and it squeezes after a meal, especially if you eat a lot of fat. If you don't have a gallbladder, you're just going to basically trickle that bile down into your intestines. For some people, that will actually cause diarrhea, so be aware of that. But the concepts that we're discussing here remain the same, which is that it's still bile coming from your liver that you need to ultimately excrete through a bowel movement.
Okay. Yeah, Robert asked the same question. I have no gallbladder anymore. It was taken out 2 years ago. What happens to my toxins? And I think you just explained that the bile, bile is not made by the gallbladder, it's stored in the gallbladder. So it's discharged by the liver into the gallbladder, and then it pauses there and it's secreted in response to fat passing by the gallbladder in an area called the duodenum. And so this is still going to leak into your gut. So Amy Allen says, bloating. It's the only symptom I have with SIBO. Nothing else has helped. And I've been bloated 24 hours a day, and I only weigh 106 pounds. What can be done to get rid of it? It's the only symptom, she says, the only symptom I have with SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, guys. This is a big one. I would love to hear your thoughts on SIBO. And she says nothing's helped. She's bloated 24 hours a day, and she only weighs 106 pounds.
Yeah, so I think where I would start is that with these types of things, I start by separating out into, is this someone who's more on the scale of diarrhea or more on the scale of constipation? Now, there are people who are constipated and they poop every single day,
Hmm.
but they're not completely evacuating. And if
Okay.
you're not completely evacuating, then you are backing up. And when you back up, the number one symptom by far is bloating. 100% of people with constipation have bloating. And the way in which I, as a gastroenterologist, know that I have appropriately and adequately treated them is the bloating goes away. So with this, what I would pay attention to for her is, does the bloating improve after a bowel movement? That's one of the questions that I would ask you. If it
Okay.
does, then we have proof of concept that actually by defecating, by having a good, healthy, epic bowel movement, you are actually improving this particular symptom. It might come back a couple hours later. This is your body telling you need to poop more.
Okay. So how do you get it? If you have SIBO, I mean, how do you address that and get someone's bowels moving? For people that have sluggish bowels, where do they start? Like, what is the, would you say dietary recommendations with, fiber, prebiotic, probiotics, postbiotics, or would you go in the direction of fermented veggies or any specific supplements to really get the gut moving again? I will tell you that I've never seen in 150,000 clients, I've never seen somebody who suffers from anxiety who didn't also have gut issues. Not once did I ever see that. Um, and you talk about serotonin being one of the main neurotransmitters involved in gut motility. I totally agree with that. Serotonin is also the happiness hormone. And so when we're deficient in serotonin, which is meeting the definition of depression, we also have sluggish bowels. People that have depressive episodes also have gut issues. People that have anxiety also have gut issues. And so the root cause is not the mental illness, it's the gut issues. It's the gut brain axis. So I wonder if you might just talk about that for a second. So for people that have SIBO or that have sluggish bowels, what are some practices they could put in place, let's say tomorrow, supplements that they could take, practices they could engage in, aside from hydration, that might get their bowels moving again?
Yeah, so the fundamentals are like, if you have mild constipation issues, which is probably not this person, hydration, drinking more water, getting some time outside with exercise in the morning, and fiber, including fiber supplements, can
Hmm.
successfully address the issue for those people. If you have moderate or severe constipation, you're going to need more than that. And this is where magnesium comes in. Now, not all forms of magnesium are the same. Specific ones serve specific purposes. For example, if it were sleep that we were trying to improve, magnesium glycinate would be a wonderful choice.
Hmm.
But within the context of constipation and wanting to improve bowel regularity, I'm a big fan of magnesium oxide. You start off at around 500 milligrams, you take it before bedtime, and you're going to start to titrate up, but don't titrate too fast. When I say titrate, I'm talking about bumping the dose up. And basically what I'm saying is every 4 or 5 days, if you're not where you want to be yet, increase the dose. Go from 500 to 750, 750 to 1,000. But basically by doing this, the magnesium helps to pull water into the intestines. And at some point, you're going to start to achieve that regularity using the magnesium supplement. I actually favor this as the first step for those people over the fiber supplement. To me, the
Wow.
fiber supplement actually comes second. So you do the magnesium first, the fiber supplement second.
Great. So Kristen Smith says, Dr. B, what are your best suggestions for a person with no gallbladder, gastroparesis, the MTHFR gene, and can't take methylated vitamins? I take magnesium multiple times a day already.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. That's a tricky one. With the gastroparesis, just to explain what that is for everyone else in the event that you haven't heard of this, basically what she's saying is that the stomach is not emptying at the speed that it should. It's really slow. And this causes people to retain food in their stomach. It creates nausea. Sometimes it creates discomfort.
Mm.
So now, gastroparesis can be caused by constipation.
Hmm.
So the way that I would attack that issue is that if there is constipation within this specific patient, I would want to take that out of the equation, and then I would reevaluate where the stomach is at. So I would
Hmm.
start by addressing the bowels. What are the strategies? We've discussed some of them here. I would walk those things in. One more thing that I would add, by the way, that can be quite powerful. I mean, it's going to sound a little bit silly, but this can be quite powerful. In the morning, each day, you have your routine. Part of your routine should be that you go and you sit on the toilet for 5 minutes.
Mm.
Even if you don't feel like you need to go, that 5 minutes on the toilet actually signals your body teaches your body this is the time that you want to poop. And what you will find is after a
Where I get
couple of
most of
days
my
of doing
text
this,
messaging done.
yeah, after doing this for a few days, you'll discover, oh my gosh, the body actually caught up and is aligning with what you asked it to do. It's quite remarkable.
Yeah, I might just also add, if you have the MTHFR gene mutation, you can write this down. Most wellness clinics, functional medicine clinics, even IV clinics will have a cocktail called a Myers cocktail. Very inexpensive, probably the least expensive IV that most of these places run. It's a combination of B vitamins, a very specific form of B12 called hydroxycobalamin. They very often will put the entire complex of B vitamins in there. They do put a liquid version of magnesium. So you can sort of skip this first pass metabolism that you're having issues with and go directly intravenous. I would also look up sublingual multivitamins, and I would specifically look for something called an RDT, a rapid dissolve tablet. These are tablets that are actually designed to skip first pass metabolism, which is your oral digestive route, and go right through the floor of the tongue and put methylated multivitamins directly into the bloodstream. The third and final way is through vitamin patches. Technology has come a long way in transdermal supplementation. NAD, glutathione, a lot of these compounds can actually be given transdermally, so you don't actually have to trust the digestive system. Very often when people have really disrupted bowels or digestive tract, or they've been on PPIs, proton pump inhibitors, for long periods of time, and their digestion is just off, we'll use alternative routes to get compounds into the body. So rapid dissolve tablets, also called sublinguals, transdermal patches, or intravenous, are great ways for you to get that jump start so that you can actually get the nutrients in that are deficient from your MTHFR genetic mutation. So we've got about 15 minutes left. So if you've got questions for Dr. B, get them into the comments now. I'm going to go to the next set of questions, but we've got about 15 minutes left with Dr. B. So Chris says, coffee enemas, do you recommend them? Is he muted? Oh, you're muted. Oh, did we mute him?
No.
There we go. No,
Oh.
I accidentally muted myself because I was taking a
Okay.
swig from my water here.
Oh, okay.
My apologies. My apologies. And then I couldn't unmute. Coffee enemas. So, all right. I don't have a problem with enemas in general, whether they be water-based enemas or a coffee enema or other alternative choices. I don't have a problem with them when a person needs them, and there are people in my experience that do need them to jumpstart their bowels. That being said, I'm a bigger fan of coffee by mouth. Here's why. So many of you may know, I'm the US medical director of a very large personalized nutrition company called Zoe. And we ran a study and we asked the question, because we have a database of 200,000 people with their microbiome data. We asked the question, what is the number one thing in a person's diet that is associated with their gut microbiome and gut microbiome health? And the answer, believe it or not, was coffee.
Wow.
And the reason why is because, number one, coffee has soluble fiber and actually a good
Polyphenols,
bit
yeah.
of polyphenols. Right. And those things shape the microbiome. But here's the more important part. We mentioned consistency. Look, we can define whatever food you think is the healthiest food for the microbiome. But the thing is, you do it once and then you don't do it for another couple of weeks. It's just part of a larger picture, but it's not something that's radically transforming. Whereas coffee, if you're a coffee drinker, you do it every day, consistently.
Yes.
And that day one, small change. Day two, small change. Day three, small change. And you compound that by 30. And after 30 days, you have transformed your gut. And that's the power of coffee.
Wow. So PG says, what kind of magnesium? There's so many. I take one called Magnesium Breakthrough at night, and it has all 7 forms of magnesium in it. It's by a company called BioOptimizers. It's not my company. But I take that product every night. My magnesium levels have all normalized on an intracellular nutrition assay. But you talked about different types of magnesium. I just want to make sure that they can write these down, specifically for gut motility. And then you talked about one for sleep. There's so many forms of magnesium. Like I say, I take them all in one supplement. But what kind of magnesium do you recommend for people with sluggish bowels?
Yeah. So a quick comment on what you just said, which is that you pointed out that you take your magnesium at night. And I do too.
Yeah.
And if
And
I
I
were
always have a
advising,
bowel movement usually within like 15 minutes of waking every morning. I brush
and
my
and
teeth and then bingo.
and the beauty of this is that the magnesium also contributes to nighttime detoxification pathways that are involved in rest and recovery. My point is that when we talk about consistency, you should separate out your supplements into two parts. Which ones are you taking in the morning? Which ones are you taking in the evening? And be circadian in your supplementation. Be consistent,
Hmm.
separate them out. So magnesium is a nighttime supplement in my opinion. And
I agree.
magnesium oxide,
Hmm.
magnesium sulfate, magnesium citrate.
Okay.
Those are the pooping forms.
Okay.
And for
Citrate,
sleep,
sulfate, oxide.
and oxide. And then
Okay.
for sleep or headaches, glycinate or threonate would be better choices.
Great. So Linda says, what is the cause of chronic gastritis?
Oh gosh, Linda, how much time do we have? There's like 50 different
Yeah.
things. There's like 50 different things. And so, I mean, like, it's, a classic in the mind of a gastroenterologist is to think about H. pylori, but I actually think it's far more complicated than just the H. pylori. In fact, the H. pylori, which is, by the way, a bacteria that takes up residence in the stomach, to me, that's a marker of dysbiosis, meaning that that actually the microbiome is out of balance. So, other potential causes include things from our diet, alcohol, tobacco use. Actually, proton pump inhibitors can contribute to gastritis. The absence of
Yep.
stomach acid can contribute to gastritis. So there's a very, very long list, I will come clean. Like in the interest of like a succinct answer, it's hard for me to do that because actually navigating gastritis on my side as a gastroenterologist is a bit complex. There's a lot of questions there.
Okay. So Shankana Johnson says, what's the best way to reset your gut due to GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I believe that
Acid
emptying your
reflux.
bowels, yeah, acid reflux. I actually think that emptying your bowels is one of the missed parts of this process
Mm,
because gastroesophageal reflux disease, acid reflux, is a motility issue. It's a motility
mm,
issue, and it happens when there's problems with the motility of your esophagus, with the esophageal sphincter, which is what separates your esophagus from your stomach, and your stomach.
hmm.
And so we want to restore motility. And this is the reason why Gary, there's data where if you get rid of soda and alcohol and you replace it with water, you improve acid reflux. There's
Mm.
data that would say that a Mediterranean diet is as beneficial for reflux as a proton pump inhibitor is.
Wow.
There's data that 10 grams of psyllium husk per day supplement and the question would be like, why does fiber supplement improve acid reflux? The answer is it's helping you to get your bowels back into a rhythm. And when you have a
Hmm.
rhythm, then the reflux improves.
Okay. So what if some of the population has SIBO and they react negatively to fermented foods? Because fermented foods are, she says, a contraindication to SIBO.
Yeah, so I think if I had a person who tells me that they react negatively to fermented foods, you know, I want to get personalized. I want to understand why would that be? What's the explanation? And the answer within this setting would be I'd worry about histamine intolerance.
Mm,
And so histamine intolerance, though, is a gut issue. I don't know if
mm,
that's been made adequately clear to people, but basically what's happening is that histamine, that is, by the way, part of our food. There's no zero histamine diet. That doesn't exist. Everything has histamine. Some has more. Fermented foods have more. And that person, their gut barrier is broken. So
hmm.
histamine intolerance occurs in a person who has a damaged gut barrier, basically meaning leaky gut.
Okay.
And the solution is to repair and restore that gut barrier. So I would advocate for a low histamine diet for someone like this. I would advocate for a low histamine diet. My second book was a cookbook, and I actually was very proud of the fact that in 2022, some people thought I was crazy. There were definitely academics that were like, "That's bullshit." And I released a book about histamine intolerance, and now actually those same people are coming back and talking about it as if, this is mainstream stuff. So here we are.
Right. Okay. Kenneth Morgan says, how much fermented food should we eat each day if we don't have seafood? Sorry, if we don't have SIBO or a sensitivity to fermented foods.
I'll take what I can get. The average American is, most people are 0 servings of fermented food per day. If there is a fermented food that people include, it tends to be yogurt is the number one. It's a
Mm-hmm.
great starting point. That's a great starting point. I support that. I want more. And there was
Okay.
a study out of Stanford University done by the Sonnenbergs where they actually showed, and I thought this was powerful, that in 8 weeks of ramped up fermented food intake, people increased the diversity of their microbiome and
Mm.
they reduced measures of inflammation. So now the amount that they were consuming was a lot. And I prefer to not even go there because if I feel like it puts too much pressure on people. Here's what I'm saying. Look for opportunities to add a single serve of fermented food. And by the way, a single serve is not much.
Mm-hmm.
Look at every meal to say, like, just add it like an accoutrement, like you would a pickle. Add a single serve of fermented food, and you're going to do something amazing for your body.
Okay, so last question before Dr. B hops off. The Happender, the fiber supplement that you recommend, is this for people that is this for everybody, or is it for people that have sluggish bowels? Is it just a good supplement to add to a morning routine to actually begin to have healthy bowel movements? What is the fiber supplement that you recommend?
Well, I have been recommending fiber supplements since like roughly 2012, and I have continued to because I've seen the amazing results they produce. But the issue, Gary, is that I was not satisfied with the mediocrity of the industry in the space.
Hmm.
And so in 2021, I decided to launch a company privately. No one knew that I was doing this except for a few people. And finally, in 2024, we came forward with our first product, which is called Daily Microbiome Nutrition. The company,
Mm.
by the way, is called 38 Terra, 38 TERA, which stands for 38 trillion. That's the number of bacteria you have inside you. So our
It's also the
DMN,
national debt, so kind of interesting.
well, that's a
Sorry.
disturbing thing as well. Yeah, when the national debt has met the number of is
Oh
matching the number
God.
of microbes we have, we got a real
Yeah,
problem.
it's a problem.
Yeah, we got a real problem. Anyway, nonetheless, the uh, this DMN, Daily Microbiome Nutrition, it combines 7 prebiotic ingredients. It
Hmm.
includes fiber, resistant starch, polyphenols. It includes them in amounts that have been proven by human clinical trials. It also happens to be a low FODMAP product, so I did design it in a way where people that have gut issues
Hmm.
and they're sensitive, this was built for you. And it's certified. It's also certified glyphosate free. And I think, Gary, you'll love this part. Every single batch is extensively third party tested for 130 different things,
I'm big on
including
that.
all of the pesticides, including the heavy metals, including I'm adding plastics now. I went to the lab and I said, what plastics tests can I do? And now I'm adding
Yeah,
that to the testing too, because basically I want
amazing.
transparency.
That's great, man. So, for people that want to find out more about your work or your books, I know you're putting out incredible content. Where can my audience find you?
Come to theguthealthmd.com. You'll find everything there. Sign up for my email list. It's a completely free resource, and if you don't like it, you just unsubscribe. And uh, and 38 Terra is the supplement company in the event that you do want to check that out.
All right, beautiful. Hey guys, my team is going to drop Dr. B's Instagram, his website, all of his social handles in the chat right now. You should be following this man. He's one of the good ones who's actually teaching people how to heal, not just how to manage their symptoms. So, Dr. Bill B, thank you so much for being here and for the work you're doing in the world. You're making a real difference. I appreciate you giving my audience the time today.
Thank you, Gary.
All right, awesome. Lots that I want to try to cram in before we head over to the VIP. I want to take a moment here and tell you something I'm so proud of. First of all, I'm proud that you guys showed up today. I'm proud you're taking control of your health instead of just accepting that this is just how you're supposed to feel. What sets you apart is that most people will complain about their symptoms, but they'll never do anything about them. So you're here, you're learning, you're trying to make changes, and that takes courage. So I appreciate every one of you guys giving me your time today. what we've covered in this first hour, this is just the beginning. Dr. B gave you some foundational things, but I want to go deeper with you. I want to show you exactly how stress and unprocessed emotions literally are clogging our detox pathways. I want to answer your specific questions about your health journey. We still have 2 more hours together. If you're on the free challenge tomorrow and the next day, I'm going to be a lot more concise and get more specific about the specific types of testing and then the specific types of supplements, not my supplements that you can get widely available for very little money. Specifically, we're going to talk tomorrow about timing, not only just timing our hydration, but timing our supplements. We're going to also talk about what fluids to drink and when, and what we can add to those fluids so they can really actually serve our detox pathways. So for those of you that are not joining us in the VIP, thank you so much for joining us today. What an incredible start to the Detox Challenge. This is just day one. I've got a lot packed into the next 2 days. So this brings us to the end of today's first session. If you joined us through the email link and you're not yet a VIP, we're grateful you showed up and we're happy and we hope that you feel you've got a ton of value. At this point, we're going to transition over to the VIP only portion where I'm going to take a deep dive, go into a 90-minute Q&A about protocols. If you're not a VIP yet, now's the perfect time to join us. You can cancel anytime. Maybe you'll be a winner of one of the $500 detox packages. So you can just go to theultimatehuman.com/VIP to get full access. So VIP, hang tight. And future VIPs, I'll see you in there. But guys, for the rest of you, I'm excited about seeing you tomorrow and Wednesday on the Detox Challenge. Don't forget, we're going to have Dr. Josh Axe and Dr. Jessica Petros coming on tomorrow. I may even extend the session a little bit to make sure that you get everything out of this guide. Guys, this guide, I wrote this and intentionally poured myself into this guide. This is everything that you really need. Treat it like a manual, not like a magazine. There are workbooks in here. There are things that you can use to actually track your progress. If you are intentional about absorbing the information from this guide, you will be detoxifying from mold, metals, mycotoxins, parasites, and viruses. This was really designed to be the guide that I wish was around when Sage and I had my clinic and we were treating hundreds of thousands of patients and we just couldn't figure out what's wrong. So please read ahead for tomorrow so that you're prepared and treat this guide like a workbook and not just a magazine that you're going to peruse. So for the VIPs, I'll see you in just a minute. For the rest of you guys, I'll see you all tomorrow on the Detox Challenge at noon Eastern time.
Okay, live stream ended. You want to?
Can I go pee real quick?
Yeah.
Can
You're
I?
still live, bro.
Can I?
We're gonna take a 5-minute break. You're live.
All right, guys, we're going to take a 5-minute break so that I can go detox. So we'll see you back here in 5 minutes. VIPs, we're going to have a monster day today. Prepare your questions. We're going to go even further on the deep dive into detoxification. I can't wait to engage with you guys. I'll see you in 5 minutes. All right, VIPs, welcome in. So first off, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for showing up. You've made an investment in your health, in your future, in yourself. I take that very seriously. To all of our new VIP members, this is the room where the masks come off. You'll learn things that I can't say on YouTube. I'm much more direct. I give a lot more information in here because on YouTube, in the general public, giving specific recommendations is kind of a no-fly zone. So you're going to learn protocols, you're going to learn tools, the mindsets that I use every day in my own daily life. I'm here to answer your questions directly, openly, honestly. I don't have an agenda for specific products or services or supplements. If you've got questions about supplements you're taking, even direct competitors of mine, I will be very open and transparent with you in here. We're going to build something really, really special together in this room. So before we take a deep dive, let's talk about the VIP gift boxes because I'm really proud of these. We're giving away 3 boxes today. I'm not talking about a bunch of cheap supplements here. Each of these boxes is going to contain BodyHealth's metal and chemical cleanse. It's a metal and chemical free cleanse that was developed by Dr. Minkoff. I'm a huge fan of Dr. Minkoff. He has a massive oncology clinic and functional medicine clinic in Tampa, Florida. I'm a big believer in his products. I take the Perfect Amino product and the metal and chemical cleanse every day myself, but they've got a great suite of products. No, I do not own that. I don't have affiliate links to those products. The raw glutathione, which is the master antioxidant in the body. Remember, glutathione resides inside of every single cell in your body. It's actually made by the liver. It's called the master antioxidant. It's the master antioxidant nobody's ever heard about, but it's excellent for detoxification. Of course, Baja Gold sea salt grinders are in there too. I'm a huge fan of Baja Gold. I think of all of the biohacks that I have, that's probably the cheapest and most impactful one. Because it has all 91 of the trace minerals in it. Both flavors of H2 tabs, hydrogen tablets, $60 worth of hydrogen tablets. I'm going to give you the premium magnesium from Bio Optimizers that I take every night before I go to bed. And my favorite as well, some additional goodies from Morgan on my team who threw in water bottles and frothers. So these are really good gift boxes. So stick around to the end of the VIP session and I'll pick the 3 winners today. So before we dive into your questions, which is where the rubber, really meets the road, I want to go back to the whiteboard just for a second because I want to go deeper into this phase 1, phase 2 detox because we're first going to talk about the liver and how we can get the liver, which is our massive detoxification organ. It's the size of a basketball. It's right here under your rib cage on the right-hand side. Soreness on that side is a sign that your liver might be in trouble. We measure liver enzymes, AST, ALT, GGT all the time on typical labs, and very often they're elevated because the phase 1 into phase 2 detoxification pathway is broken. So I'm going to talk to you about how we fix that. So let me jump back onto the whiteboard for a second. We're just gonna pick on the liver here for a moment. Because again, in detoxification, we're going to talk about how do we get metals, mold spores, mycotoxins, parasites, pathogens out of the tissue into the bloodstream. But once they're in the bloodstream, the first place they're going to be trapped is in the liver. So we have this phase 1 detoxification in the liver. And I won't overcomplicate this and go to all of the cytokines that are involved in this process. And then we're going to talk about phase 2. These are usually abbreviated phase 2 if you look them up online, or phase 1 with the Roman numeral signs. So in phase 1, this is where blood, lymph, and fluid that are passing through the liver, this is initially where they're trapped. This is why most detoxifications, very rapid detoxes make you sick. Okay, so if I were to draw a line here and talk about the difference between a cleanse and a detox, they are very different things. One is eliminating compounds from your liver that have already been converted to what we call inert carbons. They're actually converted into compounds that will not make you sick, that discharge into the gallbladder and then are pumped into the colon and eliminated in stool. So detoxification is excellent for you. Very often cleansing can be very bad for you. And the reason for that is Phase 1 is where we trap the toxins. Phase 2 is where we eliminate the toxins. By taking the side of the liver, if I were to divide the liver in half, and looking at the compounds that are sitting in the liver that have already completed phase 1 detox and are ready to be eliminated, by accelerating this process, you're fine. You don't get sick. You don't actually put toxins back into the bloodstream. By accelerating phase 1 detox, and having it overwhelm the phase 2 detoxification pathway, what happens is these trapped compounds in your liver get dumped back into the bloodstream. So if you've ever actually done a cleanse, a juice cleanse, or a 3-day liver cleanse, and you got sick from it, or you broke out in a rash, or you got hives, or you ran a mild fever, or you had flu-like symptoms, or you had pain under your right flank, or you just didn't feel well, you got more brain fog, those are not good signs. Those are bad signs. Those are signs that the cleanse dumped the phase 1 detoxification materials back into the body. So how do I go to a clean whiteboard here? New whiteboard. Awesome. Okay. So phase 1, and this is where most of us go wrong. So statistics say that about 85% of you are chronically dehydrated. And the way to know whether or not you're chronically dehydrated or not is this. If you can go an entire day without drinking a glass of water and you don't get thirsty, that is a sign that you are clinically dehydrated. The body is very efficient. So what happens in human physiology is the less we use something, the more the body begins to ignore it. If you've ever gone to a restaurant and you're voraciously hungry when you arrive, you order everything on the menu, and then it takes so long for the food to come out that by the time the food hits the table, you're no longer hungry. That's because your body has shut off the satiation for thirst and the sensation for hunger. The reason why it does that is if you are foraging for food or foraging for water and you didn't find it, it would shut off that need and allow you to engage in other activity. So if you're one of those people that can go an entire day, you notice that in your office, you just get busy and you get to the end of the day and you go, wow, I haven't drank a single glass of water. I haven't hydrated today. And your body hasn't reminded you, that is the first sign that you're clinically dehydrated. So phase 1 detoxification relies very heavily on hydration. So that is an important part of phase 1 detox. I hydrate every morning with 8 to 10 ounces of water first thing in the morning before you have coffee, before you do any, after you've brushed your teeth, maybe you've cold plunged. But the first thing you want to do in the morning is hydrate and mineralize the body, right? So phase 1 detox requires 3 things. It requires methylated vitamins, specifically the B complex. If you are deficient in the complex of B vitamins, which you would be shocked how many people can improve phase 1 detox simply by taking a methylated multivitamin. I put a link to the one that I take. You don't need to take mine. You just need to be looking for this word when you look for a B complex, a methylated B complex. Because some of you have done genetic testing, you know that you have the MTHFR gene mutation or the COMT gene mutation. A lot of you don't. So in the absence of doing that testing and getting very specific, you want to take a methylated multivitamin or a methylated B complex. Okay, I use something called Optimize. It's actually one that I formulated myself, but you don't need to take the Optimize. Pure Encapsulations has a great one. Thorne has a great one. I have no affiliation with those guys, but I take this Optimize. The other thing that it takes is minerals, and I can't overemphasize this. The process of chelation, or the process of enzymatic binding, which is what we call the lock and key method in human biology. When you have a toxin, it will bind to an enzyme, kind of looks like a Pac-Man. And so this enzyme binds to a toxin, and it creates a compound that can no longer harm you, called an inert carbon. So parasites or parasitic excretions, very often viruses, all kinds of things have an enzymatic interaction in your liver in phase 1 detox that binds an enzyme to a toxin, okay? That binding affinity of the enzyme to the toxin, this uses B vitamins. B vitamins are what cause that union to occur. So very often we can improve liver detoxification by increasing our intake of the complex of B vitamins. Also by increasing our complex of minerals. A lot of times when you go and you look at mineral supplements or electrolyte supplements on the shelf, marketers are very, very good at marketing to the public. So the majority of the mass public knows what potassium, magnesium, and sodium are. So the majority of electrolyte blends or mineral drinks will have potassium, magnesium, and sodium. That is a small fraction of what you need to detoxify. You need 91 essential minerals to detoxify properly. And you use these minerals in an accelerated fashion, the more toxic you are. So the more parasitic buildup and outgassing you have, the more you are prone to viral attacks like Epstein-Barr, cytomegalovirus, Lyme, the more mold or mycotoxin, and we're going to get specific about those, aflatoxins, ochratoxins, the more of those types of toxins, if you've done a Vibrant Wellness test and you see these are in the red, the ochratoxins, the aflatoxins, I'm going to talk a little bit about where they come from, what foods we're going to eliminate during this detox challenge, but specifically to get those out and to keep your liver enzymes, which we measure as AST and ALT, within the proper range. We need 91 trace minerals. The ones you don't hear about: boron, manganese, molybdenum, silica, iron, copper, and those actually can be gotten from a sea salt. Again, this is why I really emphasize sea salts. And then also, believe it or not, amino acids. Yes, not proteins, the building blocks of proteins. You know, it's funny, somebody did a hit piece on me. This bodybuilder did a hit piece on me telling me that the majority of people are actually not protein deficient in first world countries. And I never said we were protein deficient. I said we are amino acid deficient. Very often when our gut is disrupted, we take in whole protein sources like eggs, fish, chicken, meat, or plant-based protein sources like hemp seeds. The challenge is taking that protein source and having it enzymatically break down into individual amino acids. So those individual amino acids can then go into the blood and build all kinds of structures, not just muscle, but they build your natural killer cells, your connective tissue, the lining of your blood vessels. All of these structures, many of your cellular structures that help you detoxify and just help you be human, are made from amino acids. You'll notice that if you actually go into a fast, if you've done one of my 3-day water fasts, one of the things we talk about in the 3-day water fast is the stage at which your body begins to eat itself. It's called autophagy. And it begins to eat the body from the least useful portion forward. So it eats what's called senescent cells. Okay, these are cells that are floating around in your bloodstream that can no longer perform their function. They're red blood cells that can't carry oxygen. They're white blood cells that can't mount an immune defense. They're platelets that no longer carry growth factors. So you know what the body does? It breaks these cells into what? Amino acids. And then it feeds those amino acids into phase 1 detox in the liver so that you don't become toxic from not eating foods. You actually eat the least necessary portion of the body first. So you eat the cells, senescent cells, that are no longer viable. But why is it eating senescent cells? To get to amino acids. Okay. So one of the best things that we can do first thing in the morning is drink 8 to 10 ounces of water. Yes. Can you add lemon juice to this? Sure. Can you add a shot of olive oil? Sure. But the basics that you need are methylated multivitamins, the trace minerals, all 91 trace minerals, and amino acids. If you don't want to get it from a Perfect Amino or a Baja Gold or 10X Optimized, there are plenty of great products out there. But because our soil is so depleted right now, if you looked at the post that I did about the soil lineage study done in 1945 versus the soil lineage study done in 2021, the two don't even look like they were done on the same planet. And when the soil is depleted in minerals and nutrients, you're depleted because you're eating those plants or those animals that are consuming that soil. So one of the healthiest ways to fix phase 1 liver detox is hydration, amino acids, B complex of minerals, and methylated multivitamins, specifically the B complex. So this is your starting point to improve phase 1 detox. If phase 1 detox accelerates and it overwhelms phase 2 detox, meaning your ability to eliminate things from the liver and dump those into the gallbladder for elimination into the colon, this is where detoxification makes you sick. This is where cleanses and detoxes make you sick. So if you've ever gotten sick from a detox or from a cleanse, it's because phase 1 overwhelmed phase 2. How do we support phase 1? Methylated multivitamins, minerals, and amino acids, and hydration. I also add something called H2 Tab. As you know, I'm a huge proponent of hydrogen, not just hydrogen gas, but drinking hydrogen water. If you have a hydrogen water bottle, great. If you don't, these are about $1 a day. You add H2 Tab, and that's actually going to help with the microvascular circulation, reducing inflammation, and clearing those pathways in the liver. So these are inexpensive ways for us to get phase 1 and phase 2 detox. Later, we're going to talk about how do we support phase 2 detox, meaning how do we increase urination? How do we increase sweat? How do we increase stool and bowel movements? Because that's all has to do with phase 2 detox. If you have ever actually been sick and had the cold sweats, which all of us have, right? So you're cold, but you're sweating. Why do you sweat when you're cold? Because that is called active sweating. We have passive sweating and we have active sweating. When we passively sweat, we're trying to lower our body temperature. So if you got up right now and went for a walk out in the warm sun, you started to sweat, your body's trying to lower your body temperature, not eliminate toxins. When you have the cold sweats, when you have a flu or a virus, you have influenza and you're laying in bed and you're freezing, or you're in a cold room, you're cold to the touch, but you're sweating, that is your liver using the skin as a secondary route of waste elimination. So yes, your liver can push toxins out through the skin. This is the genesis of eczema, of psoriasis, of sebaceous acne, of all kinds of skin rashes, of rosacea, people that have minor sulfite allergies, sulfonamide allergies. If you drink California red wines, for example, versus French red wines or Italian red wines that have high amounts of sulfonamides in them, the sulfa, that here in the United States, sadly, we add to our wines. What happens to sulfa is it goes right through phase 1 detox, it ends up in phase 2 detox, and the liver pushes sulfas out through the skin. And what happens? Your ears get bright red. You get a butterfly rash on your face. You might have congested nasal passages just from a single glass of wine. It's not the resveratrol or the grapes or the alcohol that's causing that. It's the sulfonamides. It's the sulfa. And the sulfa is eliminated through phase 2 detox, generally through the skin. And so, later in the session, we're going to talk about how do we activate this phase 2 pathway, but I just wanted to finish my discussion on phase 1. Okay, let's get right into it. So I want to take a second and get your mind and your body prepared, because detox isn't just physical. We know from the blue zones, I talk about this all the time, that the people that are living the longest around the world had no continuity between diets. The two non-exchangeables in the longest life expectancies on Earth were mobility into later in life and a sense of community and purpose. But what does sense of community and purpose and mobility have to do with detoxification? Well, sense of community and purpose has to do with the state that your nervous system is in the majority of the time. There's two states that our nervous system exists in. One is called the sympathetic state, which is our fight or flight state. And one is called the parasympathetic state, which is our rest and digest state. Unless you are in a parasympathetic mode, unless your autonomic nervous system is in a parasympathetic mode, you cannot detoxify. Let me say that again. Unless your nervous system is in a parasympathetic mode, you cannot detoxify. This is why grief can make you sick. This is why isolation can make you sick. This is why not having a sense of community or purpose can make you sick. It is mental, emotional, and spiritual. I get a lot of flack for talking about this online, but it is absolutely proven in the data science. So a man thinketh, he shall become. So if you're in a fight or flight state all day long, if you're stressed at your job, you're stressed with your spouse, you're stressed with your kids, we have to learn to deal with those. We're not going to be able to get our kids and our spouse and our jobs out of our lives. So what we have to do is we have to learn with mechanisms to cope and get our body into a parasympathetic state. Okay, that's why we're going to start here. So we're always going to start with the breath, grounding yourself, hydrating, eating whole food, giving your biology the signal that it's safe to heal. Because only when you calm down will your body shift into a state where it can eliminate toxins. Very often, the toxic burden becomes symptomatic when people are under stress. So you add toxins to being stuck in a sympathetic state, and then you stack stress on top of that, and bam, you're symptomatic for the first time. So before we go further, let's take one collective breath and remind our nervous system that the healing is about to begin. So we're going to use we're going to do 3 minutes of breath work. Okay. So here we go. Just follow along with me. I want you to sit comfortably, put your hands on your legs. If you can breathe easily through your nose, I want you to use your nose. If not, you can breathe through your mouth. We're going to do 3 rounds of 10 deep breaths. And when I say 10 deep breaths, if you get too lightheaded, just stop. But I want you to breathe obnoxiously deep. Okay. I want to activate our intercostal muscles. I want to use the diaphragm to move lymph fluid. Lymph as a static system in our body, right? We always know about the lymph nodes that swell when we get a sore throat. We very often don't realize there are lymph nodes underneath our axillary region. There are lymph nodes here in our inguinal region. Anytime you actually have a sore throat, one of the first things the doctor will do is take an open hand and kind of slightly palpate your lymph nodes. It's going to be really tender. If you also took that same hand and reached underneath of your axillary region, your armpit, you would find it's very tender there. And you would find that it's very tender in your groin, right where your hip, right where the crease is in your hip. If you press there, you'd find that that's also very tender. Why? These are collections of lymph nodes in the body. And this is trapped waste that's not moving. So the best way to move it is by walking or exercise. The second best way to movement is by breath work. Breath work circulates lymph. So one of the reasons why mobility was linked to longevity was not necessarily because people were moving their bodies. It's because people were moving the poisons. They were moving their lymph. So here we go. I'm going to do 3 rounds of 10 deep breaths, and then I'm going to get right into your questions. Obnoxiously deep. Here we go. Now, if you got lightheaded from that, that's the oxygen tension changing in your tissues. That's how depleted your tissues were of oxygen. So maybe on these next 2 rounds, we'll just do 5 deep breaths. I want you to work your way from 5 to 10 to 15 to 20, eventually 25, and eventually 30 deep breaths. I do 3 rounds of 30 deep breaths every morning in sunlight upon waking within 30 minutes. And I'm telling you, it is among my drugs of choice, that and the cold plunge. We start to move our lymph. We hyperoxygenate the body. We actually tell our body that it's morning. We actually tell our body that it's time to heal. And we shift into a parasympathetic state. So in these next 2 rounds, we're going to do 5 deep breaths. When we exhale after the 5th breath, I want you to hold as long as you can. Let the carbon dioxide build up. It will vasodilate your vascular system. Carbon dioxide is the main vasodilator in the human body. It's not nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is actually a caustic gas. So I want to build up carbon dioxide at the end of each of these rounds of breath work. And then we're going to take obnoxiously deep breath. We're going to exhale through a straw. And then we're going to start the VIP questions. So 2 rounds of 5 breaths. Here we go. Last one. Now just hold as long as you can. And we're going to wait about 10 more seconds. Then we're going to take a deep breath in. Hold that. About 10 more seconds. And let it out. Okay. One more round of 5 breaths. Here we go. Last one. Straw. Okay, now hold this as long as you can. When you can't hold any longer, take an obnoxiously deep breath in and hold. Super important. Let this out through a small straw. Awesome. How good do you feel? Sometimes your head will itch, your fingers will tingle, your toes will tingle. Sometimes your lips feel a little bit funny. That's because of the oxygen tension changing in your bodies. You just did something really good for yourself. You might have even felt yourself shift from a sympathetic state into a parasympathetic state, from a fight or flight mode with lots of thoughts going on in your head to a rest and digest mode where your body's actually ready to heal. You also just shifted from phase 1 to phase 2 detox. So drop how you're feeling into the chat below. I want to see your responses. This is what I'm talking about. Your nervous system just shifted. Your detox pathways just opened a little bit wider. This is the foundation that everything builds on. That's why we always come back to the breath. Breath work is so underutilized and so underappreciated. It could be the main foundation for detoxification. And so every morning, I want you to make sure that you're getting a minimum of 3 rounds of 5 deep breaths. Work your way up to 3 rounds of 10 deep breaths, and on your journey, make your way up to 3 rounds of 30. Okay, so what's that? Oh, so I got some pre-submitted questions here my team just told me about. Let me go through the pre-submitted questions, and then obviously we'll get into the live Q&A. Don't forget, at the end of today's session, I'm giving away 3 $500 gift boxes. Tomorrow's giveaway is going to blow your mind, and Wednesday's giveaway, you're not even going to believe. So we're just getting started, guys. So how do you detect that there are harmful molds in your home, and how can you treat it? So there's a couple of ways. One is a visual inspection. Obviously, you can see mold, and in the obvious places you can hunt around your house and look for it: around air vents, underneath of sinks, behind your washer and dryer, behind your headboard. Very often what happens is our headboards are pressed against the wall. And especially if you're in a warm climate like Miami, like I am, you would be shocked how many headboards that are pressed against the wall and drywall have a rectangular section of mold that you can see. So one is a visual inspection. Look under your sinks, look around your air vents, look behind your washer and dryer, scoot your bed out just a little bit, especially if you have a fabric headboard and it's pushed directly against the drywall, and check back there. I will show you pictures of clients of mine that had severe mold toxicity in condo units in Miami, including my daughter Madison, and we scooted the bed out, and there was an actual square frame of visible mold right behind a fabric headboard. The second way is to do an air quality test. There are mold companies that will do a mold test and then remediation. This is an air quality test where they actually test for the spores. The funny thing, or the difficult thing I would say about mold spore testing, is you generally need to have it done more than once, because mold is cyclical. So you have mold, and then you have the phase at where it spores. When it spews the spores into the air, very often if it's in your ventilation system, that's when you breathe it in. The mold spores lodge into the mucosal membranes in your lung. And then the next time they sporulate, they actually sporulate into the blood. And then they will travel to areas of the body like the brain, the bones, the fat, and the tissue, lymph tissue, and they will set up shop in these areas of the body that have low amounts of oxygen, that are dark, and they're moist. Our bodies are great repositories for mold. They're breeding grounds for mold. And mold is one of those things that goes undiagnosed, sometimes chronically, for decades. And when it sporulates, you actually have symptoms. Here's a telltale sign. If you have children, please listen up. If you have young children that get recurrent sore throats, like more than one sore throat a year, 2, 3, 4 sore throats in a year, mold and viruses have had a nasty battle going on for centuries. Think of penicillin, that's a mold, and but it's also an antibiotic. So when mold sporulates, what little virus you might have at the back of your throat, streptococcus, for example, will flare. And so it's actually the mold sporulation causing the viral flare, and it's causing recurrent sore throats. So please, before you have your kids' tonsils taken out, if they have recurrent sore throats, please have them tested for mold. And you can do that with the Vibrant Wellness Test. So then you can get a home air quality test. Make sure that the mold remediation company that you're using does not just do a visual inspection, that they do an air quality test for mold. That's the way you pick up the spores. Once you find the spores, then you can go about having it remediated. I actually use an air filtration system in my house, but I also have these air filters. I'll put a link to the one that I use. And when I leave, I hit a button and it actually runs an ozone setting. And so for either 2 hours, I think it's 2 hours, 4 hours, 12 hours, or 24 hours, if you're gone from the house, it will actually put ozone gas into the room. Now, ozone is amazing for killing mold. Ozone will kill mold on the back of your drywall. It will kill mold through your entire ventilation system when it's sucked through the ventilation system. It will actually kill mold in fabrics underneath of your beds or even below the floorboards. They actually use ozone misters or ozone filtration to kill termites beneath the floorboard if you're in a wooden home that has a crawl space. So that's one of the best ways to remediate mold is with ozone gas. All right, what are your thoughts on heavy metals and having knee, hip, and shoulder replacements? That's a really interesting topic. So first of all, heavy metals in the jaw, titanium alloys, are generally different than cobalt chromium alloys, which are used in prosthetic knee replacements. Usually the prosthetic replacements do not leach metals into the bloodstream. Also, because they are not actively in the meridian pathways where there is blood flow and tissue integration, they generally do not also act as batteries. In the mouth, it's a different story. Titanium implants act actually as a saltwater battery. If you actually were to uncap a tooth that were sitting on top of a titanium implant, very often you'll see necrosis around area of dead tissue around the titanium implant. This is where the battery has actually discharged into the tissue and killed the surrounding tissue. So titanium implants long-term, just like metal implants and metal fillings long-term, are not good ideas. You can have the titanium implant removed. One of the things that you'll see when you take a titanium implant out is very little, if any, blood flow, very often dead gums or necrotic gums around the titanium implant. And then also you have to remember that the brain is transmitting through electrical signals information down into the body. The vagus nerve, something called the trigeminal nerve, which is a big nerve right here in front of your ear, branches out around your face. And you can have all kinds of downstream symptoms from a titanium implant, just like you can from a root canal or from metal fillings. Metal fillings will attract EMFs. They act like an antenna. Yes, they actually attract EMFs. They will actually pull radio frequency, microwave, Wi-Fi, and other frequencies into your jaw. And very often they also act like a saltwater battery discharging into the tissue surrounding the body. The cobalt chromium alloys that they use because they're built for strength, generally don't do that. So believe it or not, knees, hips, shoulders, ankles are not as dangerous as the implants in the jaw. Anna K. Stedman says, do ionizers and ozone treatments work on household mold? Yes, I know humans shouldn't be in the house with ozone. That's a very good point. I didn't say that. Not only humans, but animals, plants, and even fish. So if you love your cat and you have pets, don't leave the pet in the house when you run ozone. I'm actually glad that you asked that question. Ozone, the moment it's ventilated, it's fine, but it is caustic to the lungs. So Cliff Hobbs says, parasites in kids. How do I know if my son is infected? He's 9 years old, autistic. It was a C-section birth. He was breastfed. He has eczema on his cheeks. Where do I start on getting him better? Okay. 3 places to start. Take the major offenders out of his diet. So for a period of time, I would stop dairy, gluten, wheat, soy, grains of any kind, and nuts. And the reason why I would stop all of those is because very often this is where the parasitic or the mold infection starts. I actually got ochratoxin poisoning myself, and we're going to talk about this on day 3. I'm going to show you guys my tests. I got ochratoxin poisoning, which actually went into my kidneys. I traced it back to the non-organic, non-mold-free coffee, and I traced it back to the voluminous amount of nuts that I was eating. I am a big fan of nuts, but a lot of the packaged nuts that you get, especially in bulk in the grocery store, actually have mold. So I would remove those foods from his body. I would make sure that he is hydrated. I would absolutely be supplementing him with a methylated multivitamin by weight. Douglas Labs makes a good children's methylated gummy. I would have him on a methylated multivitamin. I would also have him on a child oral probiotic. And the one that I used in the clinic setting isn't coming to mind, but when I'm triggered by it, I'll put it into the notes, or we'll email it to you directly. He has eczema on both cheeks, hallmark sign of toxicity in the body, mold, mycotoxin, and viral toxicity. Very often the liver's trying to excrete that through the skin, so eczema is one of the byproducts of that. If you have it in the budget, you can buy a hydrogen nanobath. That is a game changer for eczema and psoriasis and skin conditions. That's a little on the expensive side. It's also safe to give 9-year-olds hydrogen tablets, 1 a day in 8 to 10 ounces of water. If he was born by C-section, very often C-section born children miss the important inoculation through the vaginal canal of certain bacteria that populate their gut, and this leads to recurrent asthma. It is marginally linked, not causal, but linked to autism. And it's also linked to skin conditions. So I would certainly be looking to supplement with a good childhood probiotic. Bloating, I seem to get bloated, a huge belly, some days and times not others. Could it be toxin related? Yes, it could be toxin related, but generally intermittent bloating, especially when you're eating the same foods, is related to gut motility, not to the contents of what you're eating. So very often, this is overlooked in bariatric medicine. People will say, gosh, Gary, I don't get it. I ate the exact same thing on Wednesday that I ate on Monday, but Wednesday I blew up like a tick. Like I ate the same yogurt, I ate the same sandwich for lunch, I had the same exact dinner, I mean verbatim, and one day I had a massive reaction to it, the other day I didn't. Okay, that's a sign that you do not have an allergy or a sensitivity. Remember, allergies are consistent. They're not transient. You're not allergic to milk on Monday, unallergic on Wednesday afternoon, and re-allergic on Saturday morning. That's not how allergies work. Allergies are consistent. So when you have inconsistency, eating the same food, look to gut motility. Gut motility is the pace of the gut, how the peristaltic activity in the gut is working. 2 major deficiencies that lead to gut motility issues. One is methylfolate. So I would be supplementing with a good methylated multivitamin that had something called 5-MTHF, 5-methylfolate, or folinic acid. You can also take folinic acid, same as methylfolate. The second thing that I would be supplementing with is magnesium. You would be a great candidate for magnesium breakthrough at night. After about 7 days of taking magnesium breakthrough at night, see if your sleep scores don't improve, your mind is a little more quiet, and the next day you should be having a regular bowel movement within 45 minutes of waking, and bloating should begin to subside. Magnesium and methylfolate are the chronic clinical deficiencies, second only to hydration in inconsistent bloating. So in other words, bloating when you're not eating a specific food. Obviously, if you have a dairy allergy, you bloat every time you eat dairy, or you have a gluten allergy and you bloat when you eat gluten. That's a different issue. When you are bloating, eating the same foods at different times, that's not a sign of food allergy or sensitivity. That is a sign of gut motility. Diana Martin says, what about the propolis vaporizer diffusers to mitigate household mold? I am not familiar with those. If it's a vaporizer or diffuser that emits ozone gas, then it's probably a good one. Because, again, ozone, which is just O3, it's 3 oxygen molecules. It's so small that actually, like I said, can kill mold on the backs of the drywalls, in your ventilation system, in your bedding, under the bed, and even beneath your floorboards. Okay, so I think, oh, no, I got a few more VIP questions. What guidance on doing a detox while breastfeeding? So I wouldn't do a detox on breastfeeding. I would live a detoxification lifestyle while you're breastfeeding, but I wouldn't engage in aggressive detoxification, because anything that enters your bloodstream is going to cross the blood-brain barrier and enter the fetus. Now, that being said, let's talk about healthy mom during breastfeeding and during pregnancy. So moms, don't take this the wrong way. I don't mean to offend you, but the relationship between you and your fetus when you are pregnant and you and your child when they are breastfeeding is a parasitic relationship. They are a parasite. By that I mean it is a very one-way relationship. So in other words, during fetal development, if there's anything that fetus needs and the mother's body doesn't have it, it will steal it from the mother's body. A fetus is capable of stripping calcium from the bones of a mother. A fetus is capable of stripping amino acids from the lean muscle of a mother. It's capable of stripping all kinds of compounds from the biome of the mother because it is parasitically caring for itself. By the way, this is what you want during pregnancy. I don't mean that as a joke, but it's exactly what we want. So actually having a mother taking a methylated prenatal vitamin throughout the entire cycle of breastfeeding is a great idea. Thorne makes a really good one. Also being on a probiotic, eating fiber rich foods like the sauerkrauts and kimchis, fermented foods is excellent for pregnancy, because the more nutrified the mother is, the more nutrified the fetus is going to be. There are direct studies linking fermented foods and an increased density in the quality of breast milk. So I would be following a whole food diet, taking a methylated prenatal. You can do sauna sessions. I would not do hot, long duration sauna sessions. I would do sauna sessions below 160 degrees Fahrenheit and not longer than 10 minutes. But you can still sweat. Moving is actually excellent for pregnant women because it circulates the lymph nodes. It circulates lymphatic fluid, staying hydrated, drinking mineral salts, taking amino acids, taking a methylated multivitamin, all very safe during pregnancy, and will do the right thing for your baby by giving them very healthy breast milk. Shana McGraw says, I'm set to get my wire braces off next month, and my orthodontist wants to put in a permanent retainer. I'm not really feeling comfortable having permanent metal in my mouth. Any opinions or recommendations? Yes. If you go to a biologic dentist, they will give you a BPA-free plastic insert that does not leach plastics into the mouth. They have permanent retainers that are made out of these too, if you talk to a biologic dentist. So I'm also not a big fan of having metal constantly in the mouth. It's conductive. It's essentially an antenna. It draws frequency into the body and into the mouth. But they make BPA-free composite retainers, which actually will not leak into your saliva or into first pass metabolism. What's your opinion on using limbic system retraining to reduce reactivity? Well, I know what the limbic system is, but I'm not familiar with limbic system training. That's not to say that it's bad. I just don't have a specific expertise in it. Should I get out of mold for a couple of months, or at least to heal my gut and my immune system? Absolutely. The number one rule of mold toxicity in detoxifying from mold, and there is no exception to this rule because nothing will work if you don't follow this rule, is you have to remove yourself from the environment that you were inoculated in. So many chronic conditions are because people are chronically re-inoculating themselves through their environment. So mold remediation or getting out of that environment is critical. You know, when we found out that my daughter did a Vibrant Wellness test, Madison. I think I actually posted that in the VIP group. We found her mold and mycotoxins, aflatoxins, ochratoxins off the chart. So I then went and had her apartment in Miami tested. She lived in downtown on Brickell, in downtown Brickell. The same species of mold that we found in her apartment was found in her blood. The symptoms she was having were directly related to the species of mold that we found. So we were able to draw her symptoms back to her mold test, back to the actual mold that was in her apartment. So our clinic director, Dr. Sarda, wrote a letter for her that she needed to immediately exit that environment. And in the state of Florida, it is cause to terminate the lease. And they were very good about it. We said, we're not moving back in. We're only taking the hard objects out of her apartment, like her marble table. We left the bedding, we left the mattresses, we left the headboards. We exited the apartment. They refunded the full lease, including the security deposit, and let her terminate her lease early. I have candida and it flares up from time to time and is very comfortable. Will the detox help remove the bad bacteria causing these flare-ups? Yes. And what can I do to get rid of it for good? Candida, very emphatically, feeds on sugar. It is a glucophage-like infection. And so one of the best things that you can do for candida is a 10-week clean keto reset. There's some other things you can do with fermented foods and what have you. There are candida cleanses that you can take. They are not as effective if you do not drop your glycemic profile. As long as you are giving the candida the raw material that it needs to proliferate, it will continue to expand, and it will what we call undulate. It will increase in colony size, what we call colony load, and it will decrease in colony load. And you'll be very symptomatic when that happens. I know that doing a 10-week keto reset can be daunting for some people, but it is an excellent way to reset your gut microbiome. And if towards the end of that keto reset, you add fermented foods and bone broths to your daily routine, along with minerals and hydration, what you will do is you will repopulate the good competitive bacteria that actually secrete an enzyme that keeps candida low. So when your gut microbiome is balanced, it's very hard for candida to proliferate. And then you can migrate out of keto into a more paleo diet, and then you can include lower glycemic carbohydrates back into your diet. And then, of course, once in a while, you're fine to binge on sweets if you'd like, as long as it's not a part of your daily routine. Okay. I am trying to find a mold-free place in Florida, but considering Santa Fe. What's your opinion? Oh, no, getting out of a mold-free environment. So that's, my opinion there. Okay, great. Got through the pre-submitted VIP questions. Let's open it up to the live. Oh, I see your forehead.
Oh,
There you are.
here I am.
Hi there. It's Jen. Say the
Hi.
name for me. Hi, Jen.
So on one of the past lives, I had asked about interstitial cystitis.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think you had tried to tell me about a machine, but I couldn't figure out what that was. And I also had heard since then somebody mentioning something about chelation
Mm-hmm.
and something to do with IC. So
I see.
yeah.
What's
So
I see? Oh, with
Inter-
interstitial cystitis. Okay.
yes. So but I don't know anything about all of that. So I was curious because it seems there's not very much information.
Yeah.
to
So,
find.
so with interstitial cystitis, you very specifically, you might want to write this down. You very specifically want to do what's called a provoked urine test. Provoked urine test.
Okay.
For most of us, we can use like a Vibrant Wellness test, and we can look for the metals and the toxins in our urine, because what this test does is it amplifies the mycotoxin discharge from the tissue, and it tells you what the source of it is. With interstitial cystitis, a provoked urine test is where you actually go into a clinic and they run a single IV chelation therapy. And what the IV chelation therapy does is chelating agents draw these compounds out of the tissue, specifically into the blood, and they will show up in high amounts in the urine. So depending on where you are, there are lots of clinics here in Miami that do it. You want to actually Google around for a provoked urine test. Once you get the results of the provoked urine test, then you go about detoxing that specific pathogen, whether it is a mold mycotoxin, a heavy metal, because when you get to the point where you have itis is just a term for inflammation. Interstitial is for an air, is the location of the inflammation, which is the interstitium, which means that these are deeply embedded toxic pathogens. And so you need to draw them out of the tissue, identify them, and then specifically go back after them. You know what's really exciting is I'd love to keep up with your case, because if you do a provoked urine and we get you on a good detox protocol, in about 45 to 65 days, we should be able to retest and see substantial drops in these cytokines that are related to interstitial cystitis. And, remember, in the body, one of the few things that we study in modern medicine are the types of inflammatory compounds. So I'll give you a very specific example. Let's say that this was a white blood cell, okay, this coffee mug here. When you put this white blood cell in the proximity of different things, so when it comes into contact with a virus, it secretes one kind of cytokine. These are called interleukins. When you put it in the proximity of a bacteria, it secretes a different one. When you put it in the proximity of a mold or mycotoxin or a metal. So depending on, this thing's traveling around in your bloodstream, and depending on what it encounters, it secretes a different kind of signal. If we look at those signals, we can identify what our white blood cells have been in the proximity of. Are they commonly encountering viruses? Are they commonly encountering metals? Are they commonly encountering different species of mold? Then when we test for it, we get very specific. So with interstitial cystitis, this is usually a chronic infection that has been there for a long time, and it has flare-ups, and it has what we call latency and dormant. It has times where it's much, much, much worse, and times where it actually gets better. And there doesn't seem to be a consistent behavior that leads to it being better versus it being worse. And the reason for that is that it has to do with the buildup of toxins, not the immune system.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be doing a provoked urine. That's a very long answer to a short question.
Provoked urine. Okay, so
Yeah.
I got to find
Awesome.
that. Have you heard about the whole nicotine patch thing? Because I was wondering if that would help.
Yes, I'm a big fan of nicotine. I'm a big fan of nicotine patches, not vaping or smoking,
Right.
but of nicotine patches, or even buccal nicotine patches that are clean nicotine. Remember, some of these are non-tobacco nicotines. I want to be very specific about that. Nicotine is a plant-derived compound, and it can be extracted from plants in a non-tobacco fashion. There is a large body of evidence supporting its use for chronic viral infections, even certain types of cancers. Remember, nicotine binds to the same receptors that a SARS virus binds to. So SARS-CoV-2 was very non-problematic initially in the pandemic in smokers. And they couldn't figure out why smokers were not getting COVID. They would think the opposite. They thought that they would be more immunocompromised. And what they found was that nicotine was binding to the same receptors that a lot of these viral pathogens bind to. So I am a fan of controlled use, 3 milligram to 7 milligram nicotine patches, or 3 milligram to 7 milligram nicotine pouches. You have to be very cautious of addiction. Nicotine is highly addictive. This is why people have a very difficult time quitting smoking. They have a very difficult time quitting vaping. In vapes, there are all kinds of other forever chemicals that are in there. In smoking, when you actually ignite nicotine and breathe the vapor in, you also get the tar. So this would be tar-free, non-tobacco, nicotines, but you can use them in specific cases like what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hey, man. Just says iPhone. Is it Diane? Hi, Diana.
Hi.
All right, you got red light glasses on. Those look like Dave
Yes.
Asprey's glasses. Yeah.
Here it's in the evening right now
Oh, where are you?
in the Netherlands.
Oh, right on. You get the distance
Yeah.
award. Great to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too. Well, I have a question.
Yes.
I have a lot of questions, but I have fungus nails, and I would like to know if is this because of mold or toxins or
So you have fungus under more than one nail bed?
yes, I
Okay,
have
so
3 on one foot.
okay, so three things. Number one, castor oil, which is excellent for rubbing on mold and mycotoxins. Also, to kill it, one of the best ways is transdermal ozone. So maybe Google around for a clinic that has something called a HOCAT, HOCATT, HOCATT, HOCAT. It is if you've ever seen some of the videos I have in my unit, I actually have one here in the unit. It is a steam unit that closes around your head and mists the body with ozone gas, and your feet are open. You're usually just in like a bra or underwear. You have a lot of skin exposed, including your feet. Ozoning is really caustic to mold, mycotoxins, and to fungal infections, and it can actually pass right through the nail and kill the infection. But yes, fungal infections very often are discharged into areas beneath the nail beds. And you'll find that you either get a black, bluish, or greenish tinge underneath of the nail bed, and then the nail bed turns like a foggy, translucent color and can even begin to flake off.
Yeah, they start to fall off now.
Okay, so they're starting to fall off. So that's a pretty
Yeah.
aggressive fungal infection. So
Yeah.
I would really, first of all, I would stick to this detox challenge because we're going to identify that and we're going to talk about how we get mold out of the bloodstream. But that is very common for fungiosum, fungal-based infections, to find their way beneath the nail beds. The reason for that is you're using the skin as a secondary route of waste elimination. So believe it or not, it's actually that fungicide is coming out through the skin. Very often in men and women that do jujitsu or other mat-based sports like wrestling, tumbling, gymnastics, and they come in contact very often with other people's sweat, their fungal infection transfers to their skin,
Okay.
which is called contagiosum. And so when these fungal infections and mycotoxins are being pushed out through the skin, think about what happens underneath the nail bed. It's actually just pushed into the area beneath the nail bed. There's no way for it to evacuate. The truth is that fungus is actually being excreted all over you, system-wide. It's just being trapped in the areas where there is the least amount of blood flow and actually the least amount of waste elimination. So transdermal ozone to kill it, intravenous ozone to reduce the volume of mycotoxin in the blood, and then testing through something like a vibrant wellness test or the equivalent in the Netherlands, so that we can spot which species you have, and then stick in the VIP group and stick to this mold detox program, and you'll probably find that becomes a permanent part of your past.
So
And you're a
this
VIP, so that when do they get the mold? End of this week. So the end of this week, I've got my 8-week full, very detailed plan for mold detox, and you can just follow it to a T.
yeah, I have multiple problems. I had also 22 years breast implants. I had them removed last year, so I think I have also heavy metal toxins.
Yeah, heavy metal and microplastic toxins. You know, what
Yeah.
happened with a lot of breast implants was there was one major company in India that made tens of millions of breast implants that were FDA approved. And essentially what they did with these breast implants was they realized that a few years after the implants were in, they would start to move around, especially when they were under the muscle and not over the muscle. It's a very common way to put breast implants into women. So they found that these breast implants would start to relocate. So what they did, without going back to the FDA for additional approval, was they began to tic-tac-toe score the back of the implant. And the surgeon would put that scored portion of the plastic into the cavity, and the breast tissue, the fibrous tissue, would actually grow into the implant and would hold it in place. What they didn't
Okay.
realize was that created a union, a blood-brain barrier exchange from the breast implant directly into the bloodstream. And this is where bisphenols, BPAs, and other microplastic toxins would actually leak into the breast tissue and cause, which drains directly into the lymph. The axillary lymph nodes are right here. They would drain directly into the lymph and cause systemic conditions. So
Yeah.
excellent.
Uh,
Well,
thank
thank you
you.
so much. I'm
Yes, thank you
happy to
too.
have you in the VIP. Hope I answer your question. Dude, I love these. I get fired up for these. Oh, hi. Can you guys tell me a name when they come up?
Sai.
Sai. Hi, Sai.
Hi. Hi, Gary. Thank you so much. So I have a couple of questions that I think they might be related. When you had Dr. B there, he was talking about fiber, and I think I have a problem actually with fiber because, like, when I have it, I get bloated and I kind of like diarrhea. So I don't know if there is a
Mhm.
thing about fiber sensitivity.
Yes.
I was reading your manual that you sent us for this detox, and you were talking about like eating like broccoli and Brussels, well, that vegetable, like,
Brussels sprouts. Yeah.
yeah, and like all of that, like peppers, beets, all of that also gets me
Okay.
very bloated.
Okay.
But I would like to eat them. It's just that it's
So I'll
very
tell you.
difficult.
Yeah, I'll tell you what we do. You want to get a good digestive enzyme, because so basically, the way that or at least the way that I think about it, a lot of GIs don't think about it this way. Like when I start thinking about colon health, I literally start at the rectum and work my way all the way back to the oral cavity, right? So constipation usually occurs in the late part of the digestive tract, in the colon. Why? Because the colon is where we resorb water or put water back in. And why would we absorb too much water? Because the colon is too slow. So the longer it sits, the more water is resorbed, bang, you have constipation. If it moves too fast, too little water is resorbed, you have diarrhea. If it's not in the colon, you start to move to the small intestine. When you get to the small intestine, the general issues there are not gut microbiome, food allergy, or food sensitivity. It is the pace of the gut. So I start thinking about things like supplementing with methylfolate, supplementing with magnesium, making sure that those levels are normal. Then as you move up, even further, even higher, you get to an area called the duodenum, which is where the gallbladder secretes bile. Very often people have an issue with the production of bile or the secretion of bile. They have an issue
GERD.
metabolizing. You do?
Yeah, and actually a few years ago they found a polyp in my how do you pronounce it? Duodenum?
Duodenum, yeah, duodenum. Some
Yeah.
people say duodenum, but I say the duodenum. So the stomach discharges into an area called the duodenum, which is like a little circular flap of tissue. And so contents exit the stomach. That's where the gallbladder will pulse bile, especially if you have fat in the food. It will pulse bile, and then those contents will move into the intestine, and then they'll start to go through the small intestine, then the large intestine, and then they exit. So now we're getting to where your problem is, right?
I had
So
a
now,
polyp, but they removed it.
okay. Well, I'm not saying the polyp is the problem. I'm saying the origin of your symptoms, because this is where the origin of fiber is coming from. So I would bet that when you say that you get bloated, that very often you feel like somebody has a fist right outside of your stomach, kind of squeezing your right here, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's very
So
uncomfortable.
Yes, it's very uncomfortable, and it's not an excess of gas. It's an excess of cramping, and it's right here below your stomach. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to assist in the discharge from the stomach. So adding digestive enzymes will generally help you become
I have
capable.
them.
Oh, there
I
you go. Okay,
take
so
them.
make sure that you take them with each meal and take them what we call midstream. So eat a little bit of your food, take the digestive enzymes, and then complete your eating. Do not skip a meal without taking the digestive enzymes. One of the
Okay.
things that those digestive enzymes will do is they will help restore the population to the gut that is required to process soluble and insoluble fiber. Insoluble fiber, you're not ever going to metabolize. It is the soluble fiber that is causing the reaction and the cramping. So the digestive enzymes will break down the soluble fiber into free fatty acids. The free fatty acids will go into the gut. The microbiome that feeds on free fatty acids will begin to proliferate. And usually in about 3 months of taking digestive enzymes, you can completely reset the population of that gut. If that doesn't work, I would add a supplement called BioComplete 3. It's by Dr. Gundry. I have no affiliation with it at all. I have no affiliate link with them. I'm a huge fan of Dr. Gundry's BioComplete 3. It is a pre, pro, and a postbiotic. And between those two things can usually set the the soluble fiber intolerance back to zero.
Okay. And
Awesome.
my other question that is quick, I don't know
Okay.
if it's actually coming from my gut.
Mhm.
My inflammation levels, like when I just did a blood test, it comes out normal. But if I exercise, I get sore like within hours. I don't have like the next day, reaction where people get sore. I'm all like anything, it's very easy for me to just get inflammation or pain. So
Okay, so this is usually exercise-induced histamine intolerance. So basically, it's a fancy way of saying that your delayed onset muscle soreness happens very, very quickly.
yeah,
And the majority, if not the vast majority of those conditions, if you haven't had it all your life since birth, that's usually a creatinine enzyme issue. If you haven't had it in your entire life and you're starting to have it into adulthood, I would really focus on hydration and mineralization prior to exercise. So I would make sure that you have, like most leg cramps are magnesium deficiencies. First sodium, then magnesium deficiencies. People that wake up with their calf is in a knot or they have cramping at night are usually magnesium and sodium deficiencies. I would add a 8 to 10 ounce glass of water with Baja Gold sea salt, quarter to a half a teaspoon of Baja Gold sea salt, and then I would exercise and see if it doesn't put it in your rearview mirror.
okay, awesome.
Awesome.
Yes, thank you so
Great
much.
talking to you. You're super welcome. Thank you for being a VIP. We know you're not in Costa Rica. Sitting by a waterfall.
No, we're talking about cleansing and detoxing. So it was
No, I love it. I should have had that as my background. I got this crappy sound dampening panel back here.
thank you so much for doing this, Gary, and thank you
Yeah.
for my call. I have a tremendous amount of right flank pain, and I have since I was like very early 20s. It led me down a path of getting gallbladder removed, appendix removed. And no matter what I do, I've done 30-day cleanses. I usually do them twice a year. And I've
Okay.
done that for about the last 5 years. And I tend to feel better, but the pain never goes 100% away. And
Mm-hmm.
it started ketogenic diet a couple of months ago, and it seems like the pain has been a lot more intense lately. And I don't know if that's because too much fat might not be good for me.
Too much fat because you don't have a gallbladder. Yeah.
So maybe that keto isn't a great way for me to.
Yeah, keto's not good if you don't have a gallbladder because remember, bile is what emulsifies fat. So if I were you, I would switch to more of a paleo diet, which is a higher protein, low carbohydrate, medium fat diet. I would, in your case, avoid saturated fats. Saturated fats are going to be particularly hard to digest without a gallbladder. I would never have a meal without digestive enzymes either, because, again, digestive enzymes will help with the fat emulsification process as well. What's going to happen as soon as your stomach discharges, there's something called the pyloric sphincter. As soon as it opens and releases into that area of the bowel, the gallbladder normally would pulse bile. You're just kind of slowly leaking bile, right? So now you pass non-emulsified fat into the next phase of your digestive system. That bacteria is not designed to handle non-emulsified fat. It's supposed to get emulsified fat because bile was supposed to be secreted upstream. And when that contents reached that group of bacteria, that bifidobacteria, that acidophilus, that lactobacillus, it was supposed to have already been pre-emulsified. Well, it's not. So then the bacteria starts a fermentation process, right, trying to handle it. And this may be the reason why you're getting what's called hepatoportal pain, pain in the hepatic duct in the liver. And you might even know that term because you've had this condition for so long. Your doctor may have talked to you about the hepatoportal duct or the hepatic duct. And
did.
so yeah, he did. Okay. So
No, they did not.
Oh, they did not. Well, they should
I've
have.
never heard this. No.
And when you say flank pain, I'm going to be very specific about where it is. Flank pain can be in the front. Flank pain can be in the side. My guess is that yours is rear flank pain right here.
Mine is kind of like to the side.
To the side and towards the rear, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so that's your hepatoportal duct. I would definitely, I would reduce or nearly eliminate saturated fats. And I would go to polyunsaturated fats, things like really, really clean extra virgin olive oils, coconut oils. Clarified ghee butters are also excellent. Those are great fat sources for you that will not cause, shouldn't cause pain. And I would add a digestive enzyme.
Okay. Second part of my question is I started doing a hydroponic garden, but then I started
awesome.
but then now I'm hearing about all these microplastics and I'm really concerned about it's made from recycled ocean plastic, which I thought I was doing something great for the environment. And I love the way that the food makes me feel. There's something about eating the food fresh that feels alive. And I don't know how to explain it. It's different, but I'm concerned about the plastic and maybe it's not a healthy thing to do.
No, it's fine. It's actually, microplastics come from the packaging media, not the grow media. So there's very little evidence that the tray, because you have water that goes down, it lays in the plastic, it's captured and moved. Majority of this is coming from the packaging. There's even a clinical study that was just released showing that glass bottles have more microplastics than plastic bottles. So I took a peek at it and I was like, that's impossible. It was actually the caps and the non-BPA free rings that are on the inside of these caps. In hydroponic grow facilities, the water is carried away in in the plastic container. It's not used as a packaging. So the roots don't come in contact with it. The soil doesn't come in contact with it. The water doesn't come in contact with it. So I'm not aware of that being a risk factor at all.
Okay.
I would say stick with your hydroponic growing facility. That's great to hear you doing that.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Such a pleasure. Evelyn.
Unmute. Hi,
There
Gary.
you go. It worked.
Yay. I have a zillion questions, but I'm gonna
Okay.
Number one, was tested for heavy metals and it was off the chart. I did that with the Pampa. I didn't go down that route. And I've had my blood test said I had fatty liver as well. And I had 2020 I had and this has been going on since 2020 off and on. I've had this cough.
Mm.
20, I moved to Philly, and that was COVID, and nobody would see me because I just moved there, and it was all done through telemedicine. And I was on prednisone and antibiotics for like
Oof.
a bunch of months, 9 months, whatever. But they finally did an MRI, and they found my lungs looked okay, but he said I had a tumor. So I had a tumor removed, a thymoma. I had a thymoma.
Mm.
But he said, he goes, this isn't causing your cough. And
Mm.
I have this cough off and on. I get, it's like mucus, whatever. So I just feel like I'm inflamed. So I've been trying to do everything possible for inflammation. I do red light every day, and I just
Okay. Oh, you do red light every day. Okay, great. So here's the three things that I want you to really focus on. One is, do you have a way to sweat 2, 3, 4 times a week? Do you have a sauna? Do you have access to a sauna?
I don't have a sauna. No.
Okay. So I wasn't supposed to announce this till tomorrow, but we're going to be giving away a sauna blanket on day 3. So maybe you'll be one of the recipients of our sauna blanket. But but I would really try to find a way to get yourself sweating minimum of 3 times a week. And here's what's really important. If you can get into a sauna, dry sauna or an infrared sauna, or you can get yourself a sauna blanket, what's really important is to take a towel while you're sweating and be wiping your skin. If I actually did a sauna scrape of you, one of the reasons why, if you're on social media lately, you see a lot of people talking about saunas and how it reduces all-cause mortality, which it does, that the longest life expectancies in the world were centered right around the equator, where actually people sweat on a regular basis, that sauna reduces cardiovascular disease. It's not that the sauna actually reduces all of these diseases. It's what comes out of your body in a sauna that reduces those conditions, because sweat, especially dry heat, and even through infrared heat, dry heat is probably better. Sweat is the secondary route of waste elimination for the liver. Heavy metals especially are known to be in the sweat scrapes of people that get in saunas regularly. And if they're in your sweat, that means they're not in your body or your bloodstream. So I would try to add sauna 3 times a week. The other thing, and we were going to talk about this tomorrow on the challenge, but I'm going to just jump ahead for a moment, is I would think about adding, especially since you have fatty liver, I would add a charcoal gut binder. Okay, Symbiotica makes one. I think Perfect Amino makes one. I mean, not Perfect Amino, BodyHealth, but just get a charcoal binder. Okay, take the charcoal binders very specifically at this time. 1 hour after your first meal in the morning, minimum of 2 hours before your second meal. Because what I want to do is I want contents going through your gut. So I want your gallbladder active, your liver active, the intestinal tract moving, and then you pack a binder in. You don't want to eat it too close to a meal because it will just absorb all the nutrients from your meal. People take binders with food, and that is the worst way to take a binder. So never take binders with a meal unless you just don't want to absorb any of the nutrients from the meal. What you do is you eat, you wait an hour for what's called clearance, and then you put them into the stomach, and then it will move through the bowel, and it's very good at binding those toxins that sit right outside of the liver and the gallbladder and sweeping them out in the stool. If you can, I would start charcoal binders 1 hour after a meal, 2 hours before your second meal. I would start sweating 3 times a week, and I would try to consciously double your hydration.
I mean, I sweat every day.
Do you? Good.
I'm on the bike for at least 40 minutes every day.
Super.
And I'm drenched.
That's great. The only reason why sauna is particularly helpful in detoxification, that is called passive sweating, what you're talking about. You will not activate the liver during passive detoxification, right? So passive detoxification is the body trying to lower the body temperature, okay? Active detoxification is sweat being used as a secondary route of waste elimination. When you apply heat to the surface of the skin and you dilate those surface capillaries, once those surface capillaries are dilated, the liver will start to exchange toxins with the surface of the skin. So I would still really consider that. Make sure that you're keeping up with your Baja Gold sea salt and your mineralization, because if you're sweating that much, you know, you want to make sure that you don't throw your electrolytes off. I would also be adding a gut binder, specifically a charcoal binder, or a zeolite binder. There's one called Toxi Prevent that you can get. I think it's called Ready Med that makes it, and the formula that you want is called Lower GI.
What
So
was
those
the
are
name of that company?
Toxi, Toxi, Prevent. They're out of Europe. You can't even get it here in the States. Toxi Prevent, Lower GI.
Okay. But my last question is how do I get off these stupid inhibitors? Brett's
Proton pump inhibitors?
yes.
Okay, so that's another great question. So why are most people on proton pump inhibitors? They're on proton pump inhibitors because they have gastroesophageal reflux disease. They have GERD. They have acid that is spilling back up into the esophagus from the stomach, right? But the question is, why is the sphincter muscle at the top of the stomach relaxing and allowing acid to splash out? It's not because you have too much acid. It's the opposite. It's because you have too little acid. The pH of your stomach is designed to be very low. Battery acid level, like 3.5 pH. Okay, that's very acidic. If you chopped off the end of your finger and swallowed it, it would dissolve in this acid. Okay, so it's very acidic. That's how it's meant to be. What happens is, as the pH of the stomach rises and becomes more alkaline, that sphincter muscle that's at the top of the stomach called the cardiac sphincter, you have another one at the bottom of the stomach called the pyloric sphincter. This cardiac sphincter, because it's near the heart, starts to relax. What makes it relax? Alkalinity makes it relax. So actually, by becoming too alkaline in the stomach, that sphincter relaxes, the acid spills out, you feel it on the esophagus, and you take a PPI and make your stomach more alkaline. What happens is you make the stomach acid so alkaline that it becomes neutral in pH, and then you don't feel it burning. It's still leaking into your esophagus. It's just not burning anymore. So then what happens is slowly the mucosal lining erodes on the inside of the stomach. That's meant to protect the acid from the lining of the stomach. And you start the process of poorly digesting your food. So I would look into taking something called betaine. Betaine HCl. Thorne makes a good one. There's also one called pepsaicin by Thorne. These are supplements that you take that will actually increase the acidity of the stomach. They will reduce the acid, meaning the pH. They'll make it more acidic. As the stomach becomes slowly more acidic, that cardiac sphincter will clamp shut. The more acidic your stomach, the tighter that valve shuts. The tighter it shuts, the less chance there is for acid to leak out.
Would I have a hernia too?
But a hiatal hernia or an inguinal
yeah,
hernia?
No, a hiatal hernia. And so they said, oh, you know, lots of people have them, and oh, take this because I had a esophageal ulcer, and so it's like I knew this. I said,
esophageal ulcer is the beginning of something called Barrett's esophagitis. It's dysplasia in the distal part of the esophagus because the acid is laying against the distal part of the esophagus. And the reason why the acid is there is because it's not concentrated enough and that sphincter muscle is relaxing, right? On the top side of that cardiac sphincter is your esophagus. On the bottom side is the inside of your stomach. That's the barrier. So pH goes up, sphincter relaxes, acid, it's still acidic. It's just not 3.5 pH. It might be 4, 4.5, 5. It's still, but the distal end of your esophagus is not meant to handle even that pH. So what happens is you start to get dysplasia. You start to get changes in the tissue at the far end of the esophagus, which is something called Barrett's esophagitis. But so I would, same answer. I would still try to improve the acidity and lower the acidity of the stomach to get that sphincter muscle to behave properly. Because if that seals, you have no risk of gastroesophageal reflux disease, GERD, acid reflux, or a Barrett's esophagitis because that mucosal layer is protected by the sphincter muscle.
okay.
Okay.
I've been taking
Awesome.
pendulum and just trying different ones. I actually had tried the BioComplete Dr. Gundry. I was just trying to repopulate.
Yep. I like the BioComplete, but specific for stomach acid, you want to take betaine HCl, betaine hydrochloride. It'll say betaine, capital H, capital C, capital L on the bottle. Lots of great manufacturers make those. There's only one compound that's betaine hydrochloride, so you don't need to shop
Awesome.
two. And it's not expensive. Awesome.
Thank you.
Great talking to you. I love these guys. This is like where the rubber meets the road. And I apologize if I'm taking too long to answer questions. I'm just trying to anticipate what other people might be thinking or what other people might be dealing with. So let's go on to the next one. Denise. Hi, Denise.
Hi, Gary.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's 15 years ago. I've been on levothyroxine, and about a year ago, I was able to switch from levothyroxine to Armour Thyroid. I've
Okay.
had an endocrinologist and a functional medicine doctor, even though the functional medicine doctor is trying to help me identify my root cause of my Hashimoto's. She is telling me that I may never be able to go off of the Armour Thyroid, and that was my goal, was to find the root cause. Biologically, can you explain why I'm being told that?
Yeah. Can I go to the whiteboard? Okay. No, I wasn't asking you. I was asking the team. She's like, yeah, of course you can.
Sure.
Thank you, by the way. I just want to make sure that we could still put the camera on it. Now everybody knows my password and can break into my whiteboard. Okay. So let me just teach everybody a little thyroid lesson here. So I'm going to teach you more about the thyroid than a lot of endocrinologists know. And again, we already know that I am not an artist. I'm a scientist. So the thyroid is right here, right? And the thyroid is producing two hormones. It's producing T4 and it's producing T3. Okay, triiodothyronine and T4. But the thyroid doesn't determine how much T4 and T3 it produces. Okay, there's a master gland up here in the brain, right, called the pituitary. It sends a signal down to the thyroid. This is called TSH. Okay, your TSH, your thyroid stimulating hormone, this is the volume knob. Okay, these are the speakers. The thyroid is the speaker. It does not determine how much thyroid hormone it produces. The tuner does. The tuner is up here in the brain, and it turns up and it turns down. So as TSH goes up, it puts pressure on the thyroid to increase the production of these two hormones. Okay, so levothyroxine and Synthroid, these medications are on this side of the thyroid. They are putting pressure on the thyroid to increase production. Armour Thyroid is on the opposite side. So Armour, or what's called an NDT, a natural dissected thyroid, that's on this side of the thyroid. It's mimicking T4 and T3. It's directly replacing the hormone. So one turns the signal up, the other one replaces the hormone. Okay, so after you have stimulated this gland for so many years, this eventually turns down, right? Because if you're taking a medication, the volume knob interprets that medication as too much hormone and it starts to turn down. The same way that if you give a male testosterone injections, their testicles will lower their production of testosterone. Same thing happens in a female. Here's the interesting thing about the thyroid. The thyroid is producing all of the T4. It is only producing 20% of the T3. So here is sadly where most thyroid diagnosis goes wrong. We diagnose low T3 and say, if you have low T3, you have hypothyroid, okay? But the thyroid is only responsible for 20% of that production. So the question is, where does the other 80% of the thyroid hormone come from? That's the real question. the 80% of the thyroid hormone T3 is converted by T4, and T4 is converted into T3 in the liver and in the gut, and a very small amount in the periphery. So 80% of all T3, low T3, is not the thyroid. Super important. 80% of low T3 is the conversion of T4 into T3, which happens in the liver and the gut. So you want to make sure that selenium, thiamine, and very less frequently iodine. B complex and methylfolate. Those are the major supplements that actually are involved in the conversion of thyroid hormone T3 into thyroid hormone T4, or T4 into T3, what we call deiodization, which happens in the liver. Now, let's go to Hashimoto's for a second. Let's just go back to the thyroid, because since we're talking about detox, this perfectly dovetails with our detox challenge. Okay, so let's just go back. There's the thyroid, there's the pituitary, you look great. You just probably need to go see a chiropractor for your neck. Other than that, you're doing good. Okay, so thyroid stimulating hormone is turning the volume up to the thyroid. Thyroid is producing T4. Thyroid is producing T3. And now all of a sudden, the immune system is secreting a thyroid peroxidase antibody, and it is attacking the thyroid. So now, for some reason, the immune system is waging a war on the thyroid, which is called Hashimoto's. The question is, what triggered the immune system? What called the immune system to that location? Well, there's not one answer, but if you look at Hashimoto's, 85% of Hashimoto's, right, is idiopathic, of unknown origin. Why would 85% of the time we have no idea why the immune system attacked the thyroid? And by the way, it happens more in females than in males, and it usually happens in healthy men and women, more frequently in healthy women than in men. So again, I'm not saying this is 100% the answer, but what's really interesting about the thyroid is mercury, arsenic, lead, palladium, other heavy metals. These heavy metals have an affinity for this gland. So they actually migrate and embed themselves into this tissue. When the immune system sees heavy metals embedded in the tissue, it manufactures an antibody to get to the metal, not to the tissue. And so very often you will see, as root causes of autoimmune conditions, one of the big symptoms that we're talking about on this test, which is mold, mycotoxin, heavy metal, and virus. Less frequency, these tend to be acute infections, but we're testing for these during this detox challenge, and we're talking about how to get these out of the body. So a lot of autoimmune, guys, is triggered, and parasite. A lot of autoimmune is triggered by these toxins being in places of the body where they shouldn't be. When you have a leaky gut, the immune system fires up against the colon, Crohn's. When you have heavy metal toxicity embedded in the thyroid, the immune system fires up against the thyroid, Hashimoto's. When you have parasitic cestode nematodes or cestode larvae from a helminth parasite that is a spirochete and burrows into the myelin sheath of the nerve, the immune system lights up the myelin sheath of the nerve, multiple sclerosis. So again, I'm not saying that's always the case, but very often we're just too fast, in my opinion, to assume that the body's made a mistake, that the immune system just went haywire. And and it hasn't gone haywire, it's actually after one of these toxins. So I would really be doing a Vibrant wellness test if I was you. And this is a perfect challenge for you. This detox challenge is perfect for folks like you.
Awesome. Thank you. That was a great explanation. I've never understood it like that. So that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Aw, thank you so much. I hope you guys, I hope that didn't go too fast through that. That's great. I get excited about science. I could do this all day.
Hey, Gary.
Hey, man.
Hey,
Is it Robert?
Yeah, it's Rob. Yep. I'm 35. I had my total like colectomy done. I had my entire colon removed because I had ulcerative colitis. I found out in 2012. I fought it for a long time, didn't know what caused it, as they always tell you, oh, we don't know what causes this, whatever. And so in 2018, I had to have 5 surgeries, had my colon removed. And since then, I'm 5 years like past my last surgery right now. And still just kind of struggle with some symptoms. They don't really have a lot of information for you on like, doesn't matter what you eat and things like that, right? They always just give you basic information at the doctor's office. But so anyways, I have a J pouch now. That's kind of the gold standard for what they give you. I had it done at the Cleveland Clinic. So anyways, some of my biggest things are just like fatigue, some brain fog and things like that. I still have like 10 to 12 bowel movements a day because of this J pouch that I have. It only holds like,
It's a constant on. It's a colostomy bag. Yeah.
So it's kind of hard. And I don't have the ileostomy anymore. Everything that I have is just internal now. So it's nice to be able to have that. But I have to wake up once or twice at night. So I feel like I'm not getting into that good deep sleep all the time. But I'm also a firefighter, so I do shift work. So like the whole sleep regulation thing is super hard. So I follow a lot of the things that you guys are talking about here. And sometimes I don't have control over that. So I'm trying to do the best that I can with things I can control. I'm waiting on the total detox panel right now from Vibrant. It says the provider is going to contact me here soon. So I did do that.
Right.
I ordered the perfect aminos, the H2 tabs, and the Baja gold salt just got here as well. I do lose water and salt way faster than normal people, not having a colon. I've always done like the like drip drops and like oral rehydration solutions. I want to see if I can maybe get away from those and go to the minerals. So I kind of wanted to see what your thoughts on that. And then like with the probiotics and things like that, Cleveland Clinic says that some bias studies were done, saying yes or no. So it's kind of like I'm trying to just figure things out on my own because some of the top experts in the field aren't giving you the information that's actually correct or based on actual data anyways. So just kind of want, and then like like if pouchitis, they have you take antibiotics. I don't want to keep taking antibiotics. So I want to kind of shift towards preventative medicine per se, rather than, oh, hey, I'm sick all of a sudden. Let's just go ahead and do a scope and put you on antibiotics. Like I'm just kind of tired of that. So just kind of
I totally agree
of where I'm at right now and some of the challenges that I'm having.
Okay. Can I go back to the whiteboard? Sorry. Okay. So I'm gonna go back to the whiteboard because this is really important. So if I start with the oral cavity, right? And then I go down the esophagus, I go into the stomach. Then you go through, let's call this small intestine, right? And then you're going to go through the large intestine, okay, which is also called the colon, right? So down here is the rectum. So this is the pathway. So because you've had your colon resected, it's just too late to talk about that. This is where water gets reabsorbed or deposited. But the good news is the majority of your gut microbiome is in this area, small intestine. Some of it, yes, is in your colon. So we have to work within this this area right here. Ulcerative colitis, by the way, is in these diverticulum that are in the bowel. What happens is you get these, inflammation that in the diverticulum, and it causes sores and it causes ulcers, and then it can actually bleed into the body. So ulcerative colitis is ulcers in the colon causing inflammation, itis, And if that inflammation gets trapped in there, then essentially it causes an ulcer, and the ulcer can bleed, and then that's where you have potentially life-threatening conditions. So here are some things that I really think that we should be doing. Number one, we should be bathing the gut in things that are really going to help heal and seal the gut. So colostrum is really important for you. There's one called cowboy colostrum, which is first harvest colostrum, which would actually be a really good one for you, called cowboy colostrum. There is a peptide called BPC-157. BPC-157 is actually a gastric peptide, gastric pentadecapeptide, will help sort of heal and seal the gut lining. Also, you are a perfect candidate for digestive enzymes, because you want as much absorption as possible. In you've probably lost several feet of intestinal tract, so you need to gain that absorption back. Mineral salt is an absolute must. I wouldn't take the hydration products because they're so overloaded with sodium, potassium, magnesium, and so deficient in the other minerals. Minerals that the little cilia in your gut really need to resorb back into the body. As often as possible, I would be thinking about things like sublinguals, sublingual vitamins, nutrients, rather than the oral ones that you swallow, because the issue is not that you've had a loss of function in the small intestine. The issue is that without a colon, the pace that the small intestine moves is very, very quickly. It's why you have more frequent bowel movements. Generally, they're probably looser, loose stool bowel movements, because the colon is what resorbed the fluid, and now you don't have a colon. So I would be really thinking about colostrum, BPC-157, and digestive enzymes. You're a candidate for mineral salts in your water, as much water as you're drinking. I think it would be very hard for you to disrupt the sodium balance or get potassium, magnesium, or sodium overload. On your blood test, the area of your blood test called the CBC, or called the CMP, the Comprehensive Metabolic Panel, you can actually see those levels on the Comprehensive Metabolic Panel. And you don't need to be a doctor to read them. It will show you the low and the high, and it will say sodium, potassium, magnesium. You will probably also see that your proteins are low, which is why amino acids should be another important supplement for you 3 to 4 times a day. You'll find that if you're exercising like your buddies in the fire department, you won't build muscle like they do. You'll have a much harder time building muscle.
Yeah, for sure.
And the
and
reason is,
and I mean, you can see my body comes. I just started taking testosterone last year because I wasn't gaining any muscle. I mean, I'd weigh 180 pounds, was super scrawny, could never, gain a lot of weight. I've gained about 20 pounds since taking testosterone. I mean, I'm strong, but it's everything I have.
Yeah, that's good. And I certainly didn't mean that by observation to make a personal attack.
No, I get it. I was like reassuring what you're saying is like has some validation to it.
Yeah, okay, because it's the protein conversion, right? So we eat protein, and then in our intestinal tract we break the protein down, throw it into the bloodstream. The liver converts it into amino acids. They go out into the blood. It's that ability to extract the protein from the intestinal tract, from the chicken, the meat, the liver, the fish, whatever, and get it into a place where the liver can chop it into amino acids. So great that you're taking testosterone. That's super good for you. I think you add amino acids, colostrum, BPC-157, the gastric pentadecapeptide, digestive enzymes with every meal, and mineral salts constantly in hydration. The majority of people, I would say, mineral salts in the morning. That's the way I take them. But I would say, your capacity to become hypernatremic is not very limited. I mean, get too many of those nutrients. So that's definitely where I would start.
Okay, and so on that, on the digestive enzymes, when I ordered the Perfect Aminos, they had like gut restore and gut defense, those kind of things. Is that what kind of like you're talking about, something like that?
No, I don't think that you have those, because I don't think that you have a particular. I mean, those are great products, but I'm just saying I don't think that you have a particular gut microbiome issue.
Okay.
I think you have an absorption issue, right?
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so colostrum, BPC, digestive enzymes. I would also think about the H2 tab, keeping your inflammation low
Okay.
in
Perfect.
the
Yeah. I ordered
diverticula,
those.
in those little pockets.
Mhm.
Hydrogen goes everywhere in the body and is a massive ability to reduce inflammation. I'm a huge fan of those H2 tabs, these things.
Yeah, I just ordered them. I got them
And
on
for
the
the record,
counter
that
over
is
there.
my
So.
son's company, just in full
Oh,
disclosure.
nice.
So I do have an interest in that, but I also am a deep believer in that.
Sure. Do you have the recommendation for the digestive enzymes? Like which ones?
Yeah, BodyHealth makes a great digestive enzyme.
Okay, perfect.
Really good one.
Okay. Well, hey, I appreciate
Okay.
your time.
Oh, you're going to drop it in the chat. Okay, so Morgan's going to
Okay.
drop it in the chat for you.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, 10 minutes left. Let's at least try to get to two more questions. Wow, pretty good there. John? Hey, you got to unmute yourself, brother.
Unmuted.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, John.
Nice to meet you. New to the community, new to everything. Well, new to the fact that you're preaching a message that we've tried to live without even knowing it for the last 2 to 3 decades.
That's awesome, man. Thank you.
So good news is we found you. Bad news is we've gone down the rabbit hole and are doing all kinds of stuff that you've recommended. And I've got some questions for you.
Okay.
I've lived a very blessed life, very healthy. I'm 59. I'll be 60 in October. Very active, worked out for years. But over the last few months, couple of years, really it feels like it doesn't matter what I do in regards to diet and exercise. So I started working with a new trainer, started looking at more in-depth DNA, blood work, things like that. One of the things that I'm looking at is starting to lean into peptides.
Oh, huge fan.
Considering BP 157 just because of bumps and bruises and nicks and stresses that it just gets harder to repair those. And number two, a compound of Simorlin and Ipamorlin together.
Yes. Simorlin and so Simorlin and Ipamorlin are great ideas. Next month, I am actually launching a line of ultimate human certified peptides. I've been inspecting and putting a peptide manufacturer here in the United States through grueling paces on how they're sourcing their raw material, their stability, their sterility, their potency, their transdermal capabilities, their nasal capabilities, serum concentration studies, all kinds of things to get, because I'm such a big believer in peptides, but people treat all peptides the same and they treat all peptide manufacturers the same. And a lot of stuff that you're ordering online is basically Chinese junk in my opinion. And a lot of it has heavy metals, and the source raw material does not guarantee stability, sterility, and potency. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that next week I'll actually be certifying certain peptide lines, and I'm way down the scientific rabbit hole on that. So peptides are amino acids. They're amino acid sequences. The body recognizes them. It can break them down. It can eliminate waste. I'm an enormous fan of peptides. The last gentleman I was recommending he take BPC 157. Sadly, the BPC 157, that's the majority of what's available out there, is nutritional grade. It's not pharmaceutical grade. So next month there will be pharmacies recompounding BPC 157, so you'll get the true gastric pentadecapeptide, and it is a phenomenal peptide for wound healing, for healing and sealing the gut. So what you're talking about are growth hormone releasing hormones and growth hormone releasing peptides. So can I go back to the whiteboard again? Or do you guys know how to switch it? Okay, Max is out of the room. I'm getting like every urge to go to the whiteboard because I want to explain this. But so basically, the way that you secrete growth hormone in the body is the pituitary secretes growth hormone. Okay, the pituitary has a boss called the hypothalamus. Okay, so the pituitary in this case is not determining how much growth hormone it's secreting. The boss is, the hypothalamus is. So a good growth hormone combination is not taking growth hormone from outside the body and putting it in. It is taking a growth hormone peptide, which is telling both the pituitary and the hypothalamus that it's time to secrete growth hormone. And you can rewind your pituitary to a more youthful level of growth hormone secretion by using these peptides. And so you're what I call high on your own supply, right? So instead of taking growth hormone from outside the body and putting it in, which suppresses your production, you're actually stimulating your own pituitary to secrete your own growth hormone, which is actually much safer. Every tissue in the body responds. We have 30-year tachyphylactic studies, anti-desensitization studies on peptides, which are phenomenal. We don't have 30-year studies on anything in modern medicine. So these amino acids fall into two categories, GHRPs and GHRHs, growth hormone releasing peptide, growth hormone releasing hormone. You should always take them in combination to make sure that you get the biggest bolus natural release of growth hormone. We should also always tie these to our circadian cycle. So you want to take these at night right before bed, either by injection 2 hours after a meal or sublingually, or even transdermally. This company that I'm getting ready to certify makes a transdermal spray, which is very effective. So sublingual or injectable, 2 hours after a meal, right before bed, you get a nice big bolus dose of your own growth hormone, and that really will help reset the clock. It burns fat, it improves the appearance of your skin, fine lines and wrinkles. It thickens the dermal layer of your skin. It helps dramatically with muscle growth and muscle recovery. They are musts in post-surgical recovery. So if you had any kind of surgical intervention, you're listening to this, knees, hips, shoulder, rotator cuff, thoracic surgery, peptides are great ways for you to accelerate the healing process. But always look for them in combination. Sermorelin, ipamorelin, CGC 1295 and ipamorelin, sermorelin and tesamorelin, two of those in combination. That's always the best way to do it.
Perfect. That was the question that I had, is I wanted to understand why we're looking at, because the doctor that I met with, I wanted to understand why.
Yeah,
why
if my production manager was in here, I would actually show you on the board. But do you know how to switch it? Hold on, see if that switches. Oh, she punched the button and it worked. Okay. My team's like cheering in the background because my production manager went to the bathroom, so we don't know how to run the camera. So good job, Malia. Okay. So here's how it works. By the way, does it help when I write up here, do you think? Okay. So
Yes.
yeah, so let's go back to the black one here. So you have the hypothalamus, right? Then you have the pituitary, which is kind of like a balloon. And then the pituitary, so weird that it won't change color. Okay, then the pituitary secretes growth hormone. So growth hormone is secreted from here. What's really interesting is once growth hormone gets into the blood, okay, into the bloodstream, there's a negative feedback loop that goes to the hypothalamus, which shuts off the pituitary. So when you are taking growth hormone peptides, this is super important. You have to combine a GHRH, a growth hormone releasing hormone, with a GHRP, a growth hormone releasing peptide. Taking a single growth hormone peptide may or may not work, which is why you want to take something like sermorelin with ipamorelin, or CJC 1295 with ipamorelin, or sermorelin with tesamorelin. So you should always look for those two names if you're going down the rabbit hole of peptides, because you want to tell the hypothalamus it's time to secrete growth hormone. It sends a signal to the pituitary saying time to secrete growth hormone. You want to stimulate the pituitary directly, time to secrete growth hormone, and then you'll get a big bolus dose of natural human growth hormone from your own pituitary. As we age, these glands rarely lose the ability to produce youthful levels of hormones. What happens is the signal gets turned down over time. So it has the capacity to secrete youthful levels. It's just being told to secrete less. So one of the hallmarks of aging is a progressive decline in the signaling, which is one of the things that peptides do, is they return that signal. What are the byproducts of healthy growth hormone release? Better muscle repair and recovery, improved appearance to your skin. You'll take on a more youthful appearance. The longer you take these peptides, the more youthful an appearance you'll take on. Deeper sleep. You have 3 pulses of growth hormone during the day. You have a small one in the morning, a medium one in the afternoon, and then at night, right before bed, you have a huge bolus pulse of growth hormone. And when that happens, your body helps get you into a deeper, more restful sleep. So, huge fan of those. Thank you for the question.
Okay. I appreciate
Awesome.
it.
You're really welcome. All right, we got time for one more question. By the way, I hope you guys are getting a lot out of this, man. I'm really excited about this next 3-day journey. Hey, brother, is it Todd?
Todd, how's it going?
Hey, Todd, how are you, man?
Pretty good. Huge fan. I have
Thank you.
a lot of questions I could ask, but I'm going to go with one that I saw at least a couple other people ask in the comments. And I don't remember if it was you or Dr. Peter Attia that I heard say that like most things can be healed. But I have diverticulosis. Doctors have said that, you know, there's nothing you can do about it. It's something you're just going to have to live with the rest of your life. In your experience, do you know, is there anything that you can do to either, you know, heal or improve diverticulosis, or is there anything that you recommend for that?
Yeah, diverticulosis or diverticulitis?
Well, so I guess my understanding is diverticulosis is where you have like the pouches in your gut or in your intestine. Diverticulitis is when those, you know, stuff gets stuck in there and then it gets infected. So
yes,
so you can get diverticulitis from having diverticulosis, but diverticulosis is what is always there. So like, I guess like, is there anything you can do to try to like heal those pockets or make them smaller so you don't get diverticulitis? I've had in like the course of 8 years, I've had 2 bouts of diverticulitis from it. And it's just, so I'm just trying to figure out if there's something that you can do to heal that so you don't have to worry about getting diverticulitis.
Yes. Yes. So the answer is absolutely. So I won't bore you by going to the board again, but so basically just like the previous question. So diverticulitis is essentially fecal matter and other compounds that get into the diverticulum, these indentations in the wall of the colon, and they become trapped, they become necrotic and inflamed and cause sores. So if you were to take the tube of the colon, you would see that it's not a smooth tube. It's got these undulations in it, so that if you actually stretched it out, it would be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet long. And then it sort of folds in on itself. And this is to increase the surface area, right? Because the surface area is where we absorb nutrients. And so this is a diverticulosis, which also leads to diverticulitis, the inflammatory issue, is an issue with inflammation in the surface mucosa of that tissue. So what we need to do is we need to keep the inflammatory cascade low. So there's several things that are really good for that. An absolute must is to be on the oral form of BPC 157. That is body protection compound 157. You can take this in an oral form, or you can take it in a nasal spray. I'll actually have one next month, because what you want to do is BPC 157 will constantly call platelets to the site of inflammation, and it will heal and seal and repair that tissue to keep an osum from becoming an itis, to keep a pocket from becoming a inflammation. Okay. The second thing is I would be also taking regular colostrum, just like I recommended to the last individual. Colostrum has a way of bathing the intestinal tract in, it's something that actually is very soothing to the lining of the gut, right? There's a reason why in the first 48 hours of milk production, a mother produces something called colostrum. And colostrum is one of the first things to go into a fetus, an infant, because it's the first thing you want passing through the digestive tract to line the entire digestive tract. The other thing is there's a whole series of probiotics in your gut. One is called bifidobacterium The bifidobacterium colony is very important for the diverticulum. You can get the bifidobacterium colony from Dr. Gundry's BioComplete 3. Again, I have no affiliation with him other than the fact that we're friends, but I have no financial affiliation with him. It is a pre, pro, and postbiotic for people with diverticulosis. One of the things that the previous guest was asking me was, he said he talked to his doctor and there's mixed reviews and mixed summaries on probiotics. Let me be very specific about probiotics for a second. And this is a critically important point. There are two types of research that they do on probiotics. When you actually are a nerd like me and you go into the study design and you read the study design, you find that there are some studies that are like, oh my God, probiotics was like the savior. It was like the Hail Mary in this patient. It changed their life, it improved their absorption, it reduced their inflammatory markers in the bowel, reduced inflammatory markers in the gut, completely changed their life. Then later you see a very similar study run with almost the identical probiotics, and there was no change at all between the placebo group and the control group. The difference was they did not protect for the stomach acid in those probiotic research studies. Because remember, probiotics are bacteria. The stomach is specifically designed to kill bacteria. The only reason why we have a stomach is to kill bacteria. That's why the stomach is so acidic. It's so that if we eat something with bacteria in it, it kills it. Well, what are probiotics? They're bacteria. So there isn't a single probiotic known to mankind that can survive first pass metabolism. None of them, no matter how good the manufacturer is. If you swallow a probiotic capsule and it opens in your stomach acid, it will kill all of that bacteria. So a manufacturer that understands this will actually put, like Dr. Gundry, will actually put the probiotic, and there are other ones too. Maybe I'll sit down and give you guys a list of them. There are other manufacturers that put it in a capsule that does not dissolve in acid. It dissolves in an alkaline environment. So the capsule stays intact in your stomach. Then when it moves into the intestine and it becomes alkaline, it drops the probiotics off in the area where they survive. That difference was the difference between the research showing incredible outcomes and the research showing no outcomes at all. It was not the fault of the probiotic. It was the fault of the study design. Then when they repeated the study, and with, and this is very aggressive, with something called fecal transplant, where they actually took fecal matter from one patient and then put it into another patient, 100% of those patients, roughly 100% of them, had incredibly positive results. Why? Because those probiotic lived. They took it from a patient and put it into another patient. So fecal transplant is too aggressive for you, but the oral probiotics that are protected from the stomach acid is a must for diverticulosis.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome, man. Great talking to you. Guys, this was amazing. We got VIPs. Look, I mean, just look what we've accomplished together. In the last hour and a half, we didn't just learn about detox, you experienced it. This is why I love this VIP group. Real people asking real questions, getting real results. If you're in this VIP long enough, you'll be around when the testimonials start to come. And some of these testimonials will honestly bring tears to your eyes. There's people that have been in my VIP group for over a year, and some of the journeys that they've been on have been just absolutely astounding. The more you're in this VIP group, the more you're going to learn to love it. There are people that have been in here on a long journey with me that answer your questions. My team is very active in here. So if you felt your nervous system shifting during our breath work, then you got some real answers to your health questions. So now you understand why your symptoms aren't character flaws. They're biological signals. So here's what I'm most proud of. You're not walking away empty-handed with just information. I want you to be leaving with a plan, and I try to give you that plan every time we're in these rooms. So are we going to announce the winners? Okay, here we go. This is what's exciting. That was just day one. Yes, I want to do the winners, and then I want to finish, because, dude, I want to do the winners. I know you guys want to do the winners. So let me announce our VIP gift box winners. Gift box winners? Can we bring them up on the? Is there a way to put them up here? If they're in, oh, they better still be in the Zoom. So number one, Mackenzie Crawford. So if you're in there, raise your hand. Number 2, James Steyer, S-T-Y-E-R. And number 3, Allie Smith. Morgan is going to reach out to you to get your shipping information. You won one of our $500 gift boxes today. We gave 3 of those away. Please don't forget that tomorrow at noon, we're back live. Of course, I'm live with you guys again at 1 o'clock. Did we find any of those guys? Were they on here? I wanted to. James is? Yeah. Let's throw them up. James, congratulations, buddy.
Thank you so much, Gary.
How long have you been a VIP?
I've been a VIP since last November. But
Okay,
I've been
good. I was going to say, if you joined today, you really got to return.
You are the best. I mean, you could ask my wife. She's sitting over here with tears in her eyes.
Aw.
You are the best.
Thank
Love
you so
man.
much. Yeah, I love you
Thank
too,
you.
brother. I'm happy to see you win. How about Allie or Mackenzie? Let me say thank you. Allie, are you there? Can you unmute? All I can see is your trucker hat. Oh, is it an Ultimate Human hat? Oh, awesome, Allie. Can you unmute?
Hi
There you
there.
are. Hey there. You won one of our $500 VIP boxes. Did you know
I'm
that?
so excited.
I'm so excited for you too. And you got the Ultimate Human hat on. That's even better. How
Yes,
long have you
powered by Cold
been a
Life,
VIP?
part of our daily morning routine.
Oh, it's so good. How long have you been a VIP?
Gosh, probably about 5 months now.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, congratulations. You deserve it. I'm excited. But it's a pleasure to see you, Allie.
Yeah, thank you so much. This community has been such just a blessing for my husband and I as we've been on this journey for health and vitality. I'm so excited to learn more this week on the detox,
Yeah,
especially
no,
after
we're
getting
gonna.
my vibrant wellness results. So thank you for everything that you do.
Yeah, they can be scary, right?
Super scary. I about fell off my chair. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, but the good
Yeah.
news is once we find them, we can get them out. So I'm excited about going on this journey for you. I mean, my team and I worked so hard for this challenge. I mean, months and months, trying to just put it all in order and really make a guide that would work, that we could give out to people that could really help, have enough there for a free community, and then really take it to the next level with the VIPs. So I really appreciate you being a VIP, and I'm excited to be on this journey with you.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Enjoy your gift. And then Mackenzie, is she? Oh. Hey, Mackenzie, there you are.
Hi. Oh my gosh. I'm almost literally fell off the couch. My husband started jumping up and down in the background.
Oh, he heard me call your name. That's
Here.
awesome. Yo, hubby, how you doing, man? Well, you got a nice $500 gift box coming your way, and you deserve it. How long have you been a VIP?
I just joined yesterday, actually.
See, you're the one I was looking for because I was like, she's not even $97 in. So you got a 5x return on your money already. So
I'm so thankful. You have no idea how much of a blessing this is.
That's great, Mackenzie. Tell your husband I said hello. I'm excited to be on this journey with you guys. I'll see you tomorrow for the Detox Challenge. Don't forget to give Morgan your coordinates so she can get that out to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're really welcome. What's up, hubby? How are you, man?
Good. How about you? Thanks so much. We've been doing this for over 6 months now. It's been completely life altering. We want to thank you. We heard about you through Sean Ryan. So thank you guys for what you're doing, and we really support it. It really works. So thank you guys
God bless
so
you,
much.
man. Thank you so much. Enjoy your gift. We'll see you guys tomorrow, okay? Wow, that was day 1. Tomorrow, guys, we go even deeper into testing. So how we actually figure out what's inside of you.